The forest went silent 3 seconds before the ambush. Staff Sergeant Arya Vance felt it through her scope. The shift in wind. The wrongness in the air. 900 meters below, 12 operators moved through the kill zone, oblivious. Their commander had pushed her to the margins. Overwatch only. Leave the real fight to us. Now through thermal haze, she counted 14 hostiles encircling her team in a crescent formation. Machine gun nests, prepared fields of fire, a coordinated trap. Her radio crackled. Spectre, maintain discipline. 5 seconds later, the world exploded. Muzzle flashes tore through darkness, screams fractured the comms, dirt geysered around pinned bodies, and the commander who dismissed her was now bleeding out behind inadequate cover, his confident voice replaced by panic. 1 woman, 14 militants, no backup, 5 minutes. Before we dive into what happened on that ridge in Karash province, if you want to see how a soldier written off as a diversity hire turned a massacre into a masterclass, stay with me until the very end. Drop a like and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's go back to where it all began. The briefing room smelled like stale coffee and testosterone. Commander Grant Holloway stood at the front, laser pointer dancing across satellite imagery of Karash province. Dense forest, elevation changes, known militant strongholds. Shadow Unit 7 sat in folding chairs, bodies relaxed but eyes sharp. These were Tier 1 operators, the best of the best. Men who'd seen things that never made it into official reports. The door opened mid-briefing. Arya Vance walked in, rucksack over one shoulder, ash blonde braid tucked tight beneath her ball cap. Ice-gray eyes swept the room once, cataloging faces, exits, threat assessment hardwired from a childhood in the Montana backcountry where hesitation meant hypothermia. 12 pairs of eyes tracked her. Holloway's jaw tightened. "You're late." "Flight from Bragg was delayed, sir. Weather." "I don't care about weather, Sergeant. I care about discipline." She nodded once, found a seat in the back, said nothing. Holloway returned to his briefing, but the room's energy had shifted. Whispers, glances. One operator, call sign Brutus, built like a fire hydrant with a neck tattoo, leaned toward his teammate. "That's the diversity attachment? Heard she's some kind of shooting prodigy. Montana raised. Range Queen doesn't mean field ready." Arya heard every word. Her expression didn't change. She'd heard it all before. Tit. Holloway continued, pointer now tracing the target compound. High-value target is Qasim Nazari. Former intelligence officer, now coordinating attacks across 3 provinces. Intel says he's holed up here. Tap on the screen. Abandoned Soviet-era facility, heavy forest cover, minimal road access. What's the catch? This from Reeves, the team's breacher. Scarred hands, calm eyes. The catch is he knows we're coming. Maybe not when, but he's got early warning systems, patrols, the works. We go in hard and fast, 20-minute operational window before reinforcements arrive. Exfil plan? 2 Blackhawks stage 12 clicks north. We secure the package, we're wheels up before they know we were there. Brutus raised a hand. What about Overwatch? Holloway's eyes flicked to the back of the room. Sergeant Vance will provide long-range coverage from a ridge approximately 900 meters from the primary objective. 900 meters? That's pushing effective range in forest terrain? Sergeant Vance comes highly recommended. The words sounded like they'd been dragged out with pliers. Her file shows exceptional marksmanship scores. Scores don't stop bullets, sir. No, Holloway agreed, but they're what we've got. Any other questions? Silence. Good. We inserted 0400. Get some rest. The team filed out. Arya stayed seated, studying the satellite imagery on her phone, a screenshot she'd taken before anyone noticed. The terrain was wrong. The approach vectors Holloway outlined moved through natural funnels, places where elevation and vegetation created choke points, perfect for ambush. Sergeant, she looked up. Holloway stood 3 feet away, arms crossed. Sir, I want to be clear about something. His voice dropped low, meant only for her. I didn't request you. This assignment came from people who don't get their hands dirty, people who care more about optics than operations. Arya stood slowly, matching his height only because her posture was parade ground perfect. Understood, sir. I don't think you do. He stepped closer. Out there, people die when they hesitate, when they second guess, when they freeze under pressure. I've got 11 men who've bled together, fought together. They trust each other because they've earned it. You? You're an unknown variable. Then let me prove otherwise. This isn't the range, Sergeant. There's no reset button, no second shot. Every shot's a first shot, sir. That's what my father taught me. Something flickered across Holloway's face. Your father was Daniel Vance, recon sniper, Gulf War. Yes, sir. I knew him. Good man. Great shooter. Pause. But this isn't about legacy. This is about whether you can perform when everything goes sideways and 12 lives depend on your trigger discipline. Arya held his gaze. I won't let them down. You better not, because if you do, I'll have you transferred so fast you'll think it was a training accident. He walked away. Arya exhaled slowly, then returned her attention to the satellite imagery. The terrain bothered her. The approach bothered her. But she'd learned young that doubt was a luxury you couldn't afford when the wind shifted and your target was moving. The armory smelled like gun oil and anxiety. Arya assembled her rifle with practiced efficiency. Each component checked, torque verified, 0 confirmed. The SR-25 wasn't the newest platform, but it was reliable. Consistency mattered more than flash. You always this quiet? She looked up. Reeves stood nearby, loading magazines with methodical precision. Focused, not quiet. Fair. He clicked another round home. Holloway's tough on newbies. Don't take it personal. I don't take anything personal. That's good. Means you'll last longer than most. He paused. Your old man really teach you to shoot? Taught me to read wind first. Said if you couldn't feel the environment, the rifle didn't matter. Smart man. He was. The word was hung in the air. Reeves didn't push. Across the room, Brutus and another operator, Cage, wiry and fast, were checking body armor. Brutus glanced over, caught Arya watching. Hey, Montana. She raised an eyebrow. That braid regulation? It's secure and functional. That's regulation enough. Cage smirked. She's got teeth. Let's hope she's got aim to match, Brutus replied. Not hostile, just measuring. Arya returned to her rifle. Let them measure. Numbers on a range only meant something when the range started shooting back. The helicopter's interior was red-lit chaos. Bodies packed tight, gear rattling, turbine scream making conversation impossible. Arya sat with her back against the bulkhead, rifle between her knees, watching the team through half-closed eyes. They moved with the easy confidence of men who'd done this 100 times, checking gear without thinking, trading fist bumps. Reeves said something that made Cage laugh, no sound audible, but the body language clear. Holloway sat opposite, eyes closed, lips moving slightly. Prayer or mantra, Arya couldn't tell, didn't matter. The crew chief's hand went up. 5 minutes. Everyone tensed. 4 minutes. Weapons hot. Safety's off. 3 minutes. The helicopter banked hard. Arya's stomach dropped as they descended fast. Combat insertion. Minimizing exposure. 2 minutes. Night vision goggles down. The world turned green. 1 minute. The crew chief pointed at the door. Reeves moved into position. Touchdown was barely a pause. Skids kissed earth. Bodies poured out. Rotors already screaming for altitude. Arya hit the ground last, knees absorbing impact, rifle up, scanning sectors through her NVGs. The forest was a cathedral of shadows. They moved. 900 meters. That was the distance Holloway had assigned her. Overwatch from a predetermined position while the main element assaulted the compound. Safe, isolated, irrelevant. But Arya had studied the terrain during the flight, cross-referencing satellite imagery with topographic maps she'd memorized. The primary overwatch position Holloway designated offered limited sight lines, too much vegetation, wrong angle for effective coverage. There was another position, a shale ridge 300 meters northwest, harder to reach, exposed during approach, but once established it would provide superior fields of fire across the entire kill zone. The team moved in single file, Holloway on point, hand signals directing movement. Arya was positioned at the rear, standard for overwatch, last in, first to peel off. 200 meters from the split point, Holloway raised a fist. Everyone froze. He made eye contact with Arya, pointed to a game trail leading east. Your position. Move quiet, set up, report ready. She keyed her radio once. Acknowledgement. But as the team continued south, she paused at the fork. East led to the position Holloway wanted. Northwest led to the ridge. 3 seconds of calculation. Then she went northwest. The terrain was brutal. Wet shale, loose scree, vegetation that grabbed at her pack. 60 pounds of gear plus rifle. Every step calculated to avoid noise. Her breathing stayed controlled, rhythm-matching movement, heart rate steady despite the incline. 200 meters. She heard water, a stream, narrow but fast. Crossing would expose her thermally if anyone was watching with IR. She waited, listening, counted to 30. Nothing. She crossed low and fast, water soaking her boots. 100 meters. The ridge came into view, exactly as the satellite imagery promised. Narrow spine of rock, natural cover from scrub pine, elevation advantage. She approached from below, using dead ground to mask her movement. 50 meters. Her radio crackled. Spectre, report status. Holloway's voice clipped, impatient. She didn't respond immediately, focused on reaching the position first. 30 meters. 20. Spectre, respond. She crested the ridge, dropped prone behind a fallen log, rifle extended. The view was perfect. Below, through scattered trees, she could see the entire approach to the compound. Kill zones, dead space, likely ambush points, everything Holloway's team would encounter. She keyed her radio. Spectre in position, good coverage. You're off assigned coordinates. Relocated for better sight lines, sir. Silence. She could almost hear him grinding his teeth. Next time you ask permission. Yes, sir. But they both knew there wouldn't be time for permission if things went bad. Arya established her hide with practiced efficiency. Bipod deployed. Range card sketched. Landmarks, distances, windage references. She pulled a Kestrel wind meter from her chest rig, took readings. Wind variable, 8 to 12 miles per hour, shifting northeast. Temperature dropping. Humidity high. Through her scope, she began mapping the terrain below. Compound at 11 o'clock, 420 meters. Soviet-era construction, concrete walls, minimal windows. 2 guards visible, AK pattern rifles, cigarettes glowing orange through thermal. Approach route at 9 o'clock. Holloway's team would move through that corridor. Thick forest, good concealment, but also channelized. Dangerous if anyone was waiting. She panned her scope methodically, sector by sector. That's when she saw it. Disturbed earth, 30 meters south of the approach route. Fresh. Not from rain or animals. Someone had dug there recently. She adjusted magnification. The pattern became clear. A firing pit, camouflaged with brush. Recently occupied based on the vegetation compression. Her pulse quickened. One firing pit meant preparation. Preparation meant... She scanned wider, systematic grid pattern. There, another position, 40 meters east, and another, northwest. Her breath caught. They weren't random. They formed a crescent, a kill zone. Anyone moving down that approach would be caught in overlapping fields of fire from at least 3 positions, possibly more. She keyed her radio. Spectre to actual. Go ahead. I've got eyes on possible ambush positions along your route. Multiple prepared fighting positions, crescent formation. Spectre, maintain discipline. We've got this covered. Sir, I'm seeing fresh earth, camouflaged. Maintain. Discipline. Each word bitten off hard. We're 30 seconds from go. You provide overwatch. We handle ground operations. Clear? Arya stared through her scope at the kill zone taking shape. Clear, she said, but nothing about this was clear. Holloway's voice came through comms, calm and controlled. All elements, status check. One by one, the team reported ready. Spectre? Set, Arya replied. Her crosshairs rested on one of the guards outside the compound. Easy shot. 400 meters, minimal wind, stationary target. But that wasn't the threat. The threat was the invisible crescent waiting in the trees. On my mark, we moved to Rally Point Alpha. Fast and quiet. Reeves, you've got point. Brutus, tail. Questions? Silence. Good hunting. Mark. Through her scope, Arya watched them move. 11 shadows flowing through the forest, spacing perfect, discipline absolute. Professionals doing what they'd trained for, straight toward the kill zone. She panned back to the firing pits, still nothing visible. Whoever was waiting had discipline too. They'd let the team get close, let them commit. Then, movement, slight, just a ripple of fabric against bark, but her eyes were trained to catch the impossible. She adjusted magnification. There, a figure, prone, rifle aimed down the approach route. Waiting, she shifted her scope. Found another. And another. 12 hostiles, maybe more, all positioned to annihilate Holloway's team the moment they entered the funnel. Her finger moved to the radio transmit button, then stopped. Holloway had been clear. Maintain discipline. Don't interfere. He'd made his assessment, planned his operation, and her input wasn't welcome. But her father's voice echoed in her memory. Ego gets people killed. Pride is a luxury. When you see the wind shift, you don't ask permission to adjust. You adjust. Arya made a decision. 20 seconds until contact. The team moved through scattered pine, boots whispering over needles. Reeves on point, rifle up, scanning. Behind him, Cage covered right sector. Holloway center, coordinating. The rest spread in a loose wedge, professional and confident. They had no idea. Arya watched the hidden militants adjust positions. One checked his watch. Another whispered into a radio, coordinating. This wasn't opportunistic. This was planned. They'd been waiting. 15 seconds. She could stop this. One shot into the compound guards would alert the team, force them to recalculate. But it would also trigger the ambush early. And at 900 meters through forest, her ability to suppress 12 targets was... No. Not suppress. Eliminate. Her father's training surfaced like muscle memory. You don't fight fair. You fight complete. Control the battlefield, or it controls you. 10 seconds. The team reached the funnel entrance. Reeves paused, hand up, checking something. His instincts were good. She could see him hesitate, sensing wrongness even if he couldn't articulate why. But Holloway waved him forward. 5 seconds. Arya's crosshairs settled on the militant commander. She could tell by his position, the way others oriented toward him. Eliminate the head, fracture the body. Basic doctrine. Her breathing slowed. Heart rate dropped. The world narrowed to scope picture, wind call, and trim calls and trigger pressure. 3 seconds. The team entered the kill zone. 2 seconds. The militants tensed. 1 second. Arya exhaled halfway and made peace with disobedience. Then the forest exploded. Muzzle flashes ripped through darkness like camera strobes. The sound hit a half-second later. Overlapping automatic fire. 12 weapons opening up simultaneously. Bark exploded from trees. Dirt geysered. The air filled with hornets made of lead. Contact! Contact left! Reeves' voice, still professional despite the chaos. Right side! Right side! Cage, returning fire. Get down! Get the fuck down! Holloway, his carefully planned operation disintegrating into survival mode. The team scattered, seeking cover that didn't exist. They'd been caught in the open, in a prepared kill zone, by an enemy who'd rehearsed this exact scenario. Arya watched through her scope as Brutus took a round to the shoulder, spinning him. He stayed up, stumbled behind a tree, returned fire one-handed, training overriding pain. Reeves dragged the medic, call sign Doc, behind a fallen log. Rounds chewed wood above their heads. Cage threw a grenade. The explosion lit up the forest, silhouetting 3 militants who immediately shifted positions. Disciplined, professional. This wasn't a militia. This was a trained unit. Spectre! Holloway's voice cracked through the radio. Where the fuck is our overwatch? Arya didn't respond. She was already working. Her first target wasn't the closest threat. It was the commander. He stood partially exposed behind a thick pine, gesturing to his fighters, coordinating the destruction of Shadow Unit 7. Through her scope at 562 meters, she could see his mouth moving, his hand directing fire. Wind reading. 11 miles per hour, northeast. Call it 2 clicks right. Elevation, drop compensation for distance plus incline angle. Target movement, minimal but shifting weight. Arya's finger rested on the trigger. The world reduced to reticle and breathing. She exhaled halfway. The rifle pushed back into her shoulder. Through the scope, she watched the commander's head snap back. He dropped mid-gesture, his radio falling from his hand. The effect was immediate. Two militants near him stopped firing, looking around in confusion. Their coordinated assault hesitated just for a moment. Arya was already transitioning. Machine gunner. Northwest position, approximately 600 meters. He was tearing apart the log where Reeves and Doc sheltered, wood chips flying, rounds walking closer to flesh. The problem? He was positioned between two trees with maybe 6 inches of exposure. Head and upper torso only. The rest blocked by trunks. At 600 meters through forest, with variable wind, it was a shot most snipers wouldn't take. Arya took it. She adjusted for the increased distance, calculated the gap between trees, factored the machine gunner's slight rocking motion as he fired. Exhale. Squeeze. The machine gun went silent. Below, Reeves looked up, confused by the sudden absence of incoming fire. Then he processed it, grabbed Doc, and moved to better cover. One life saved. Arya kept moving. Two militants advancing on Cage's position, flanking left. They moved with tactical spacing, rifles up, prepared to overrun him. Distance, 541 meters. They were moving targets, threading through trees. Arya led the first one, compensating for his movement speed and direction. Fired. He went down. The second one stopped, searching for the threat. Fatal mistake. Stationary target. She fired again. Now Cage had breathing room. He used it to reposition, laying down suppressive fire that pushed 2 other militants back. 4 down. 8 to go. The militants were realizing something was wrong. Their carefully planned ambush was collapsing from the outside in. Invisible force picking them apart. One fighter grabbed his radio, shouting coordinates, trying to call for help. Arya put a round through his chest at 589 meters, 5 down. The panic started to show. Disciplined fire became sporadic. Coordinated movement turned into survival instinct. They weren't hunting anymore. They were being hunted. Below, Holloway's team seized the initiative. With pressure relieved, they could maneuver. Reeves bounded forward with 2 operators. Cage flanked right. They were doing what they did best. Aggressive, violent, decisive. But they were still outnumbered. Arya kept them alive. A militant broke from cover, running toward a secondary position. Distance, 612 meters. Moving fast through trees. Arya tracked him, led him by 3 body lengths, squeezed. He tumbled mid-stride. 6 down. 2 fighters tried to lay down suppressive fire toward her ridge. They'd figured out the general direction. Rounds snapped through branches above her head. Close. Too close. She ignored them. Focused on the muzzle flashes, giving away their positions. Shot 7. Left shooter, 578 meters. Partially concealed. She aimed for center mass where the cover ended. He dropped. Shot 8. Right shooter, adjusting position. She caught him between heartbeats. The incoming fire stopped. 8 down, 4 remaining. Arya was scanning for the last 4 targets when her scope caught something that made her blood freeze. Muzzle flash. Different signature. Not automatic fire. Single shot. Precision rifle. And it was aimed at Doc, who was treating Brutus' shoulder wound behind inadequate cover. Enemy sniper. Hidden, elevated, patient. He'd been waiting for the chaos to settle, for targets to become stationary. Now he had won. Arya saw the flash and moved on, pure instinct. No time for wind calls or perfect math. She estimated distance at 640 meters, adjusted for elevation, and fired. Her round passed within inches of Doc's head. The enemy sniper's round hit dirt where Doc had been a heartbeat earlier, because Doc had flinched at the sound of Arya's bullet passing. Her round found the enemy sniper's position. Through her scope, she saw him slump forward. Doc looked up, pale, shaking. He'd just felt death pass his ear twice from opposite directions. But he was alive, 9 down. 9. The last 3 militants broke. Professionalism abandoned. They ran. One sprinted east trying to reach the compound. Arya tracked him through trees, waited for a gap in vegetation. Got it. Fired. He went down 30 meters from safety. 10. 2 left. They moved together, providing covering fire for each other, leapfrogging toward an exfil route. Smart, disciplined, even in retreat. Arya had to admire it. Then she killed them. The first one paused behind a tree to reload. She waited. He leaned out. She fired. 11. The last one realized he was alone. He froze, searching for options that didn't exist. Arya's scope found him crouched behind a fallen log, only a sliver of his head visible between twin trunks, maybe 4 inches of exposure, at 601 meters, with wind gusting. The wind shifted. She felt it on her cheek before the kestrel confirmed it, adjusted half a click right, exhaled, fired. 12. The forest went silent. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The sudden absence of gunfire was deafening. Then Holloway's voice, shaky. Sound off. Casualties. One by one, the team reported. Brutus had a shoulder wound, painful but manageable. 2 others had minor shrapnel. Everyone else intact. Impossible. They'd been caught in a perfect ambush by a superior force in prepared positions. They should have been massacred. Spectre. Holloway's voice was different now. Report. Arya scanned the battlefield one more time through her scope. 12 bodies, no movement, threat eliminated. Threat neutralized, perimeter secure, recommend mission continuation. Her voice was steady, breathing even, like she'd just finished a training exercise instead of a 5-minute engagement that rewrote the tactical situation. Silence on the radio. Then, copy. All elements, prepare to move on objective. Spectre, maintain overwatch. But the tone had changed. The dismissiveness was gone. With the ambush force eliminated, the compound assault was almost anticlimactic. Reeves breached the door. The team flowed inside. Qasim Nazari was captured in his sleeping quarters, barely awake, still processing the distant sound of gunfire that had meant his protection force was being destroyed. 12 minutes from breach to package secured. Arya watched through her scope, covering angles, ready for reinforcements that never came. The militants' radio calls had been cut off too quickly. Nobody knew they were dead yet. Package secure. Moving to exfil. Holloway's voice, professional again, but she could hear something underneath. Questions he couldn't ask over open comms. The team moved out fast, Nazari zip-tied and hooded, being half-carried through the forest. They gave the ambush site a wide berth, nobody wanting to see what precision rifle fire did to human bodies at 600 meters. Arya waited until they were clear, then broke down her position with practiced efficiency. Policed her brass. Erased evidence of her presence. Moved. By the time she reached the exfil point, the helicopters were already inbound, rotors thundering through dawn light. Inside the Black Hawk, red cabin lights flickered over exhausted faces. Nazari sat restrained between 2 operators. Everyone else processed what had just happened. Brutus had his shoulder bandaged, arm in a sling, but he was staring at Arya with something like wonder. Doc kept touching his ear where her bullet had passed. Cage was reviewing helmet cam footage, rewinding and replaying, trying to understand the geometry of what she'd done. Holloway sat across from her, helmet in his hands, jaw working. Finally, he leaned forward. Had to raise his voice over the turbines. I misjudged you. Arya met his gaze, said nothing. You didn't just save us. You controlled the entire fight. 12 targets, 5 minutes. In conditions that would make most snipers pack up and call for air support. I executed, sir. It was more than execution. He paused. You repositioned without permission. You ignored my orders to maintain discipline. By every standard, you should be facing disciplinary action. Yes, sir. But you also prevented catastrophic loss. You turned an ambush into a victory. He trailed off, searching for words. You did what needed doing. Brutus spoke up, voice rough. She saved my life. I was pinned, taking fire from that machine gunner. Then he just stopped. Didn't understand why until later. Doc nodded. That shot passed my head. Heard it before I heard the enemy sniper fire. She shot him before he shot me. Reeves was watching Arya with professional assessment. How many rounds did you fire? 12? 12 shots. 12 targets. Yes. At what distance? 540 to 640 meters, variable wind, forest terrain. The helicopter banked. Someone whistled low. Cage looked up from his helmet cam. I've been watching the footage. We never saw them. Never knew they were there until they opened up. How did you Terrain analysis, Arya interrupted. Satellite imagery showed disturbances consistent with prepared positions. Fresh earth, vegetation patterns. Once I had the elevated position, I could see what you couldn't. Holloway stared. You planned that before we inserted. I assessed probabilities and chose to ignore my direct orders based on those probabilities. Yes, sir. He should have been furious, should have been tearing into her for insubordination. Instead, he laughed, bitter, exhausted, genuine. Your father would be proud. Something flickered across Arya's face. He taught me that pride is a luxury. Results are what matter. Results. Holloway nodded slowly. Yeah, results. The helicopter carried them toward the rising sun, leaving the forest and its silent dead behind. The after-action debrief took 3 hours. Analysts reviewed helmet cam footage, radio transcripts, satellite imagery. They mapped Arya's shots, calculated trajectories, verified distances, built a timeline of the engagement. What emerged was a textbook case in advanced precision warfare, the strategic repositioning that gave her superior sight lines. The target prioritization, commander first to break coordination, then the greatest threats to pinned teammates. The shot discipline, 12 rounds, 12 kills, no wasted ammunition. The environmental reading that let her adjust for wind, distance, and vegetation in real time. The risk assessment that made her ignore orders she knew were wrong. One analyst, gray-haired veteran of 3 wars, looked at the data and said simply, "This is the future of battlefield precision. One properly positioned, highly skilled operator controlling the entire tactical situation." Holloway sat in the back of the briefing room listening. When it ended, he approached Arya in the corridor outside. "Walk with me." They moved through the compound in silence. Morning sun already brutal, heat radiating off concrete. Finally, "I need to apologize." Arya glanced at him. "Sir?" "I called you a diversity attachment. Thought you were a political appointment. Someone's quota. I was wrong. You made an assessment based on available information. I made an assumption based on prejudice." His jaw tightened. "I'm better than that. Should be, anyway." They walked past the motor pool, the sound of diesel engines and shouted instructions filling the air. "Your father told me something once," Holloway said. "We were in Iraq, 2003. I was young, cocky, thought I knew everything. We were planning an op and I dismissed his input because he was just a sniper, not an officer, not tactical command." He stopped walking. He pulled me aside and said, "Rank gives you authority. Competence earns respect. Don't confuse the two." Holloway looked at her. "I confused them. With you. I saw sergeant stripes and a woman and made assumptions that almost got my team killed. But they didn't die," Arya said quietly. "That's what matters. Because you were better than my prejudice, better than my orders." He extended his hand. "Thank you." She shook it. "Just did my job, sir." "No, you did it right. There's a difference." The official report was filed. Sanitized, classified, stripped of anything that might compromise operational security. But inside the special operations community, word spread fast. The sniper who'd turned an ambush into a precision demonstration, 12 for 12 at 600 meters through forest, saved an entire team through independent action and superior skill. Arya noticed the change immediately. Operators who'd ignored her now nodded in corridors, asked questions about wind reading, position selection, range estimation. Brutus invited her to the team's informal dinner, their way of saying she'd earned her place. She declined politely, not out of spite, just preferred solitude. But Reeves found her at the range 3 days post-mission, running drills. "Mind if I watch?" She shrugged. "Free country." He observed in silence as she worked through a complex shooting problem, multiple targets, variable distances, time constraint. Her movements were economical, no wasted motion, each shot precise. When she finished, he said, "Holloway's recommending you for Silver Star." Arya cleared her weapon. "That's unnecessary." "Maybe, but it's happening anyway." He paused. "There's also talk of reassignment. Advanced Precision Warfare program needs an instructor. They want someone who can teach unconventional applications of sniper doctrine." "I'm not an instructor." "You are now. whether you want to be or not. Reeves smiled slightly. Word is, when the brass saw that after-action report, they realized they've been training snipers wrong. Too rigid, too by the book. They want someone who thinks like you do. Arya packed her rifle case. I think like my father did. Then they want more people thinking like your father. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth. You earned this. Not because of politics, not because someone needed to check a box, because you're the best I've ever seen at what you do. He walked away. Arya stood alone on the range, sun setting over distant mountains, and allowed herself the smallest smile. The Advanced Precision Warfare program occupied a nondescript building at Fort Bragg. Inside, Arya stood before 20 sniper candidates, men and women from across the special operations community. Conventional doctrine says establish your hide, wait for your target, take your shot. She clicked to a satellite image. That works when you control the timeline. But in fluid situations, static positioning gets you killed. She clicked again. The forest in Korash province appeared. This was my assigned position, good concealment, adequate sight lines, exactly where doctrine said I should be. Another click. The shale ridge. This was where I needed to be. Exposed during approach. Harder to reach. Against orders. She looked at the class. But it gave me control of the entire battlefield. That's the difference between executing doctrine and understanding environment. A hand went up. Lieutenant Chen, Marine Scout Sniper. How did you know to move? I didn't know. I assessed probability. The assigned position had fundamental limitations. The ridge had fundamental advantages. I weighed risk versus benefit and chose the option that gave me the best chance to fulfill mission requirements. Even though it meant disobeying orders, Arya's expression didn't change. My orders were to provide overwatch. I provided overwatch. The method I chose was effective. Another hand, Sergeant Torres, Army Ranger. 12 shots, 12 kills. How do you maintain that accuracy under pressure? You don't maintain it. You build it through repetition until it's autonomic. Pressure doesn't affect autonomic response. It reveals whether your fundamentals are solid. She clicked through ballistic data from the engagement. Every shot here required environmental reading, distance calculation, and movement prediction. But I wasn't thinking about those things consciously. I was reading the battlefield like you read words on a page. Automatically. Because I'd practiced the fundamentals 10,000 times until they became language. The class took notes frantically. This was different from conventional instruction. Not rules, principles, not memorization, understanding. Today we're going to work on something most programs don't teach, Arya announced. Shooting while the enemy is shooting back. She led the class to a modified range, targets at variable distances, speakers broadcasting gunfire sounds, strobe lights simulating muzzle flashes. Stress inoculation, your body needs to learn that chaos is just environment, not threat to processing. She took position behind a rifle, activated the range. Immediately, sound and light exploded around her. Targets appeared and disappeared. Distance markers randomized. She fired. Again. Again. 6 targets, 6 hits, under 8 seconds. The chaos stopped. The class stared. Your turn, Arya said. Pair up. 1 shooter, 1 coach. I want to see you problem solve under pressure. They moved to positions. Started running the drill. Most struggled. The sensory overload disrupted their process. Shots went wide. Breath control failed. Arya moved between positions, coaching. Lieutenant Chen, you're fighting the environment. Stop fighting. Accept it. The noise doesn't change ballistics. Torres, your breathing just spiked. Why? Because you missed the last shot. So what? That target is gone. Next target doesn't care about the last one. Reset. She spent 20 minutes with a young operator named Marcus who was clearly struggling. I can't. It's too much. It's exactly as much as it is. Not more, not less. She crouched beside him. The chaos isn't the problem. Your expectation of quiet is the problem. Change the expectation. How? Practice in chaos until chaos becomes normal. He tried again, missed again, frustration building. Marcus, look at me. She waited until he made eye contact. My first firefight, I froze. 3 seconds. Doesn't sound like much until you realize people die in 3 seconds. You know what broke the freeze? He shook his head. I remembered my father saying, the rifle doesn't care if you're scared. It just does what you tell it. So I told it to shoot. And it did. She tapped his rifle. This is a tool. Tools don't judge. They execute. You just have to give clear instructions. Marcus nodded slowly. Tried again. Better. Not perfect. Better. Progress, Arya said. That's all this is. Incremental progress under incrementally harder conditions. After training, Lieutenant Chen approached Arya's office. Ma'am, can I ask something? Go ahead. In Korash, when you moved to that ridge, when you ignored orders, Chen hesitated. Were you scared? That you'd be wrong? Arya considered the question carefully. Fear is information. It tells you that consequences exist. The question isn't whether to be scared. It's whether the fear is proportional to the risk. Was it proportional? My team was walking into an ambush. If I stayed at the assigned position, I'd have limited effectiveness. If I moved to the ridge, I risked disciplinary action but gained tactical advantage. She met Chen's eyes. The fear of punishment was disproportionate to the fear of watching my team die. So I moved. Even knowing you might be court-martialed? Even knowing, Arya paused. But understand, I wasn't being reckless. I'd calculated the angles, studied the terrain. I knew the ridge would work. It wasn't blind defiance. It was informed decision-making that happened to contradict orders. Chen nodded thoughtfully. We don't get taught that. Decision-making when orders are wrong. Because it's complicated. Most of the time, orders are correct and following them is right. But sometimes, Arya trailed off. Sometimes you have to trust your assessment over authority. That's not something you can teach with a manual. How do you know when it's sometimes? Experience, judgment, willingness to accept consequences. She smiled slightly. And being right helps. Chen laughed. Yes, ma'am. Being right definitely helps. Commander Holloway appeared at the training facility unannounced 6 months after Korash. Arya was running a field exercise when he arrived. She called a break, walked over. Sir. Sergeant? Or should I say Staff Sergeant? He nodded at her new rank insignia. Promotion came through last month. Overdue. He watched the candidates running drills. How's the program? Effective. We're producing operators who think tactically instead of mechanically. I've heard. Also heard you're being considered for the Medal of Honor, upgraded from Silver Star. Arya's expression tightened. That's excessive. That's politics. Take the win. He paused. I also heard you turned down an offer to join Delta. I'm more useful here. Because you don't want the spotlight. Because teaching force multiplies impact. Holloway smiled. Your father said something similar once, that one good instructor creates hundreds of good operators. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the candidates work. I owe you more than an apology, Holloway finally said. I owe you a debt. My team, my life. We're alive because you were better than my prejudice. You don't owe me anything, sir. You learned. That's all anyone can do. I learned. He nodded slowly. And now I'm teaching others. Gave a lecture at Quantico last month about operational flexibility. Used Korash as the case study. What was the lesson? That doctrine is a foundation, not a ceiling. That the best operators know when to follow rules and when to break them. He looked at her. That sometimes a sergeant knows better than a commander. Arya smiled slightly. Careful, sir. That kind of talk undermines authority. Good authority doesn't need protecting from truth. He extended his hand. Keep doing what you're doing. We need more people who think like you. She shook it. I'll do my best. That's all I ask. He left. Arya returned to the training range where 20 future snipers waited to learn how to control chaos. She picked up her rifle and began the next lesson. The lecture hall at Fort Bragg was packed. Arya stood at the podium, now Captain Vance, addressing a mixed audience of special operations candidates and conventional infantry snipers. Behind her, a screen displayed ballistic data, satellite imagery, and tactical overlays from dozens of operations influenced by her methodology. Precision warfare isn't about perfect shots, she said. It's about perfect integration between shooter, environment, and mission requirements. When those three elements align, distance becomes irrelevant. She clicked to a new slide, the ridge in Karash province. 5 years ago, I made a decision that violated orders but fulfilled mission intent. That distinction matters. Orders are tactical implementation. Mission is strategic objective. Sometimes they conflict. Your job is to recognize when. A hand went up. Young lieutenant, fresh-faced. Ma'am, how do we know when to trust our judgment over our commanders? You earn that trust through competence. You validate it through results, and you accept consequences regardless of outcome. She paused. But first, you build fundamentals so solid that your judgment is worth trusting. Another hand. What if we're wrong? Then you own it, learn from it, improve. Arya's expression was serious. But being wrong while trying to save lives is different from being wrong because you didn't care enough to try. Intent matters. The lecture continued for 90 minutes. Questions about wind reading, position selection, stress management, ethical decision-making under pressure. Finally, a question from the back. Captain Vance, in Korash, when you took those 12 shots, were any of them lucky? The room went silent. Arya considered the question carefully. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I'd prepared my entire life for that moment. The opportunity arrived. I executed. She met the questioner's eyes. But was I fortunate that the wind didn't shift at the wrong second? That a branch didn't deflect around? That my rifle functioned flawlessly under stress? Yes, absolutely. Anyone who tells you luck isn't a factor in combat is lying. So how do we account for luck? By controlling everything you can control. Fundamentals, equipment, training, mental preparation, tactical positioning. You control those perfectly, and you minimize what's left to chance. She smiled slightly. And then you hope. The lecture ended to applause. Afterward, a group of candidates approached with questions. Arya answered each one patiently, sharing knowledge her father had given her, refined through experience and blood. This was her mission now, not pulling triggers, building trigger pullers. Force multiplication through education. Her father would approve. That evening, Shadow Unit 7 gathered at a bar in Fayetteville. They did this twice a year, the survivors of dozens of operations bound together by shared violence and trust earned in darkness. Arya had been invited every time, usually declined. Tonight she walked through the door. The reaction was immediate. Brutus stood, shoulder-long healed but still carrying the scar. Reeves raised his glass. Cage actually whooped. Holloway, now Lieutenant Colonel Holloway, smiled from a corner booth. She made her way over. Look who decided to be social, Brutus said, pulling her into a one-armed hug. Don't get used to it. Doc slid a beer across the table. To Spectre, who saved our asses and made us famous. I didn't make you famous. I kept you alive. You made yourselves famous. Semantics, Cage said. We'll take it either way. They drank, told stories, laughed at jokes civilians wouldn't understand. At one point, Reeves leaned close. Heard they're making you a major. True? Board results aren't public yet. That's not a denial. Arya smiled. No, it's not. Good. We need people like you making decisions above tactical level. I'm more effective at tactical level. You're effective everywhere. That's the problem. He clinked his bottle against hers. Just promise me something. What? When you're running this whole circus someday, and you will be, don't forget what it's like out here, where decisions aren't theoretical. I won't forget, Arya said quietly. Impossible to forget. Later, as the night wound down, Holloway walked her outside. Thank you for coming, he said. Means a lot to the team. They're good people. They're alive people. Because of you. He paused. You know what the biggest change in my career has been since Korash? What? I listen now to everyone, regardless of rank or background, because the person with the critical insight might be the one everyone's dismissing. He looked at her. You taught me that? I didn't teach anything. You learned it. Maybe, but you created the conditions for learning. He smiled. That's what good instructors do. They stood in the parking lot, North Carolina night warm and humid around them. I'm retiring next year, Holloway said. 25 years, time to make room for the next generation. You've got more to give. Maybe, but I'd rather leave while I'm still valuable than stay until I'm a liability. He extended his hand one final time. It's been an honor, Captain. She shook it. Likewise, sir. One more thing. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a small box. This was your father's. Found it when I was going through old gear. Thought you should have it. Arya opened it. A compass. Brass, worn, but still functional. On the back engraved, True North isn't on the compass. It's in the heart. DV. Her throat tightened. He gave this to me in Iraq, Holloway said. Told me that when I didn't know which way to go, I should check my heart before I checked the map. I think he'd want you to have it now. Arya closed the box carefully. Thank you. Thank you for everything. He walked back inside. She stood alone with her father's compass and the weight of legacy that came with it. Then she got in her truck and drove toward whatever came next. The training facility was quiet at 600. Arya walked the range alone, checking targets, verifying distances, preparing for another day of turning raw candidates into precision operators. The sun rose over distant mountains, painting everything gold. She thought about the path that led here, the doubt, the dismissal, the moment in Korash when everything could have gone wrong, the 5 minutes that changed a career, the years since teaching others to recognize their own moments. Her radio crackled. Captain Vance, you've got candidates arriving in 30. Copy, I'm ready. She picked up her rifle, the same SR-25 from Korash, maintained perfectly, still reliable, and moved to the first firing position. The candidates would arrive soon, eager, nervous, uncertain. She'd been there once, standing at a distance, watching others fight, wondering if she'd ever get the chance to prove herself. Then the chance came, and she'd been ready. That's what she taught now. Not marksmanship, readiness. The capacity to recognize opportunity and execute perfectly when it appeared, because the world would always doubt, always underestimate, always place obstacles between potential and achievement. The question wasn't whether doubt existed, it was whether you let it define you. Arya Vance had answered that question on a shale ridge in Korash province, with 12 shots, 5 minutes, and precision that turned doubt into irrelevance. Now she helped others find their own answers, one shot at a time. The candidates arrived, young faces, uncertain eyes, the same hunger she'd once carried. She smiled slightly and began the day's first lesson. Welcome to Advanced Precision Warfare. Before we discuss equipment or technique, I want to tell you about a night in a forest 5 years ago when everything doctrine taught proved insufficient, and the only thing that mattered was deciding who you were under pressure. The story began again. The legacy continued. And somewhere in the Montana backcountry, a retired reconnaissance sniper looked at stars and smiled, knowing his daughter had found her true north. The lecture ended precisely at 900. Candidates filed out, notebooks filled with trajectories and wind calculations, minds processing the story of Korash province like scripture. Arya watched them go, recognizing the hunger in their eyes. The same hunger that had driven her through Montana winters, through her father's impossible standards, through rooms full of men who saw her presence as charity rather than capability. Lieutenant Chen lingered near the door. Ma'am, one more question. Arya glanced up from her notes. Make it quick. I've got range supervision in 15. The night before Korash. When you knew Commander Holloway doubted you, how did you handle it? Arya considered the question, then closed her notebook with deliberate precision. I didn't handle it. I used it. Chen's brow furrowed. Used it how? Doubt is fuel if you let it be. People expect you to fail. Good. Lower expectations mean higher impact when you succeed. She picked up her rifle case. But you can't spend energy being angry about the doubt. You spend it preparing to make doubt irrelevant. That doesn't bother you? Being underestimated? It used to. Arya moved toward the door. Chen fell into step beside her. My father had a saying, the mountain doesn't care if you think you can climb it. It just is. Your job is to be ready when you reach it. They walked through the corridor, boot heels echoing off polished floors. Other instructors nodded as they passed. Respect earned through results, not granted through rank. Chen, why are you really asking? The lieutenant hesitated, then, I'm the only woman in my unit. The guys are professional mostly, but I hear things, comments, assumptions. Sometimes I wonder if I'm fighting the mission or fighting to prove I belong on the mission. Arya stopped walking, turned to face her directly. You know what the worst part of Korash was? The ambush? No, the 3 weeks before. Living in a unit where half the team thought I was a political statement instead of an operator. Eating meals alone because nobody wanted the diversity attachment at their table. Hearing whispers stop when I walked into rooms. Her voice remained level, clinical. That pressure? That constant low-grade doubt? It's designed to make you quit before you even get tested. How did you not quit? Because quitting would have validated everything they assumed about me. Arya's eyes went distant, remembering. And because my father didn't raise me to need validation, he raised me to be undeniable. Chen absorbed that. Undeniable. When your competence is absolute, doubt becomes someone else's problem, not yours. Arya checked her watch. Now get to your next class, and stop asking permission to be excellent. The lieutenant straightened. Yes, ma'am. She walked away, shoulders squared, something shifted in her bearing. Arya watched her go and felt the weight of legacy pressing down. Every woman she trained carried forward the battles Arya had fought. Every broken assumption became foundation for the next generation. But some battles never truly ended. They just changed uniforms. The range was already active when Arya arrived. The crack of rifles, the smell of cordite, the familiar rhythm of controlled violence. She set her gear down at the instructor station, scanned the firing line. 12 shooters. Mixed experience levels. Most were doing fine, one wasn't. Marcus, the young operator who'd struggled with chaos drills, was on lane 7, and something was wrong. His positions were sloppy. Breath control erratic. He'd fired 8 rounds and hadn't hit center mass once. Arya approached from behind, observing. His shoulders were tense, gripped too tight, anticipating recoil instead of managing it. Marcus? He flinched, lowered his rifle. Ma'am. What's going on? Just an off day. That's not an answer. She moved beside him, studied his target through binoculars. Shots were grouped but 6 inches low and right. Consistent error pattern. You're jerking the trigger. Why? I don't know. Yes, you do. You're thinking about something other than fundamentals. What is it? Marcus set his rifle down, jaw working. Permission to speak freely? Granted. I got my eval results this morning. My commander said I'm technically proficient but lack confidence under pressure. Recommended I be recycled through basic sniper qualification before continuing advanced training. Arya's expression didn't change. Do you agree with that assessment? I don't know. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not cut out for this level. Based on what evidence? I freeze in the chaos drills. You've seen it. Everyone's seen it. You freeze for 3 seconds, then you execute. That's not inability. That's processing time. Arya picked up his rifle, checked the chamber, handed it back. You know what your actual problem is? What? You're trying to prove you belong instead of just belonging. That mental load is eating bandwidth you need for shooting. Marcus stared at the rifle in his hands. How do I stop? You stop giving a damn what your commander thinks, and start giving a damn about your performance. She gestured to the target. This group? 6 inches low right? That's not a confidence problem. That's a mechanical problem. You're anticipating recoil. Fix the mechanics and the confidence follows. And if I can't fix it? Then you fail honestly instead of failing because you talked yourself into it. Arya's voice hardened slightly. But I don't think you'll fail. I think you're too busy being afraid of failure to actually perform. Fear is information, Marcus, not identity. Stop making it who you are. She walked away, leaving him with his rifle and his choices. 20 minutes later, she glanced at lane 7. Marcus was shooting again, slower, more deliberate. His group had tightened. Not perfect, better. Progress. The afternoon brought a different kind of challenge. Arya was reviewing training schedules in her office when her phone rang. Restricted number. Captain Vance. Captain, this is Colonel Patricia Wainwright, JSOC personnel. Do you have a few minutes? Arya straightened in her chair. Joint Special Operations Command didn't make casual calls. Yes, ma'am. I'll be direct. We're standing up a new unit. Mixed gender, high-risk direct action. We need experienced operators who can both perform and mentor. Your name came up. I'm currently assigned to Training Command. We're aware. We're also aware of your performance record and your impact on sniper doctrine reform. This assignment would be a significant career accelerator. Potential for field-grade command within 2 years. Arya processed the implications. This was the opportunity. The chance to move beyond teaching into operational leadership. Everything she'd theoretically wanted. What's the timeline? We'd need you at Bragg for initial selection in 6 weeks. Full commitment after that, 18 months minimum, likely longer. No training duties, pure operational focus. Can I think about it? Of course, but I need an answer by Friday. This is a tight window. Wainwright paused. Captain, between us, there's resistance to this unit at senior levels. Old guard who don't think women belong in direct action roles. We need proven performers to make the case. Your presence would matter beyond just your skill set. There it was. The familiar weight. You're not just representing yourself. You're representing everyone who looks like you. I understand, ma'am. I hope you do. Because if this unit fails, it sets the cause back a decade. If it succeeds, it opens doors for thousands of women who come after. Wainwright's voice softened slightly. No pressure, though. Arya almost laughed. No pressure. Just the weight of systemic change riding on her decision. I'll have an answer by Friday. Good. I'll send the formal package via secure channels. Read it carefully. This isn't a training evolution, Captain. This is the sharp end. The call ended. Arya sat in silence, staring at training schedules that suddenly felt less important. The choice was clear in theory. Stay teaching, impacting hundreds of operators indirectly, or return to operations, making the case through direct action that women belonged in combat roles. But theory never captured the complexity. Her phone buzzed. Text from Holloway. Heard JSOC called. We should talk. How did he already know? She typed back. Tomorrow. Coffee. 6:30. Response came immediately. I'll bring the difficult questions. Looking forward to it. She set the phone down and turned to the window. Outside, candidates ran drills in fading light, their movements sharp, purposeful, built on foundation she'd helped lay. The question wasn't whether she could leave. It was whether she should. Bumsam. The next morning arrived cold and gray. Arya met Holloway at a diner off-post, the kind of place where coffee came in chipped mugs and the waitress knew everyone's order. Holloway was already in a corner booth when she arrived. He'd aged in the past year, more gray at the temples, lines deeper around his eyes. Retirement planning looked like it came with stress. Captain? He stood slightly, gestured to the seat across from him. Colonel. She slid in, accepted coffee from the approaching waitress without needing to order. They sat in silence until the waitress left. Patricia Wainwright is persistent, Holloway said finally. Also politically savvy. She knows exactly what buttons to push. She made a compelling case. I'm sure she did. New unit, career acceleration, chance to prove women belong in Tier 1 spaces. He sipped his coffee. All true. Also incomplete. What's the rest? The rest is that this unit has a 30% chance of succeeding and a 70% chance of becoming a political nightmare that destroys everyone involved. Holloway set his mug down carefully. You know how these things work. Mixed gender unit gets stood up with massive scrutiny. One mistake, one injury, one mission failure, one hint of interpersonal drama, and the narrative becomes, we tried, it doesn't work. Women aren't suited for combat. So we should never try. I didn't say that. I'm saying you should know what you're walking into. This isn't about your competence. It's about whether you want to be the test case for someone else's agenda. Arya studied him across the table. You think I shouldn't take it? I think you should know why you're taking it if you do. He leaned forward. Are you going because you want operational command? Or because Patricia Wainwright made you feel responsible for every woman who comes after you? The question landed hard. Does it matter? If the result is the same. The result isn't the same. Motivation determines sustainability. If you're going because you want it, you'll thrive. If you're going because you feel obligated, you'll burn out. Holloway's expression softened. Arya, you've already proven everything. Korish proved it. 5 years of training reform proved it. You don't owe anyone another demonstration. Then why does it feel like I do? Because the world conditions competent women to feel perpetually indebted. Like your success isn't yours. It's borrowed from some collective that demands repayment. He shook his head. That's garbage. Your competence is yours. Your choices are yours. You don't have to carry everyone else's progress. The waitress returned with pancakes neither of them had ordered, but both accepted. Small-town service had its own logic. Arya poured syrup with deliberate precision. My father used to say that privilege was being able to fail individually, that when you're the first or the only, you fail categorically. Your father was right. He was also talking about a reality that shouldn't exist. But does exist. Yes, but that doesn't mean you have to accept it as defining. Holloway cut into his pancakes. Here's what I know. You're an exceptional operator and an exceptional instructor. Either path leads to impact. The question is which one feeds you versus which one drains you. Arya ate in silence, processing. Finally, what would you do? I'd stay teaching, but I'm a man approaching retirement who's never had to prove his right to exist in a space. My calculus is different. He met her eyes. What does your gut say? My gut says Wainwright is offering me everything I thought I wanted. And your heart? She looked out the window at the gray morning, at the normal people living normal lives untouched by the weight of representation. My heart says I'm tired of being symbolic. Holloway nodded slowly. Then there's your answer. It's not that simple. Actually, it is. You just don't want it to be. He pushed his plate aside. Arya, you've spent 5 years teaching operators to trust their judgment under pressure. Maybe it's time to trust your own. The rest of the week passed in a blur of training schedules and internal debate. Arya ran drills, taught classes, supervised qualifications. On the surface, everything normal. Underneath, the decision gnawed at her. Friday arrived. She had until 1700 to give Colonel Wainwright an answer. At 1400, she was on the range supervising advanced movement drills when her radio crackled. Captain Vance, you've got a visitor at the main gate. Lieutenant General Raymond Keller. Arya's hand tightened on the radio. Keller was the JSOC commander. 2 stars. The man who ultimately controlled special operations assignments across all branches. He didn't visit training facilities. Copy. Tell him I'll be there in 10. She handed supervision to her assistant instructor and moved fast to the gate, mind racing. Keller's presence meant something had shifted. You didn't send a 2-star for a routine check-in. He was waiting in the security office, dressed in ACS, no entourage. That was deliberate. This conversation was meant to be private. Sir, Arya saluted. Keller returned it casually. Captain Vance, walk with me. They exited the building, moved toward the empty parade ground. Late afternoon sun cast long shadows. I'll skip the pleasantries, Keller said. Patricia Wainwright called you, made her pitch. You haven't responded. I have until 1700, sir. You do, but I wanted to provide additional context before you decide. He clasped his hands behind his back, parade ground posture. This unit Wainwright is building, it's politically motivated. Secretary of Defense wants to demonstrate progress on gender integration, wants photo ops and success stories. With respect, sir, that doesn't make the mission invalid. Agreed. But it makes the mission complicated, because if you succeed, politicians take credit. If you fail, operators take blame. He glanced at her. You've already lived this, Korash Province. You performed brilliantly, and the narrative still framed you as a diversity experiment who got lucky. Arya's jaw tightened. I'm aware, sir. I'm sure you are. What you might not be aware of is that I fought to keep that narrative out of official reports. Spent political capital making sure your after-action analysis focused on tactical brilliance, not gender politics. He stopped walking, turned to face her directly. I did that because you deserved credit for what you accomplished, not for what you represented. Why are you telling me this? Because if you take Wainwright's offer, I won't be able to protect you the same way. The unit will be under intense scrutiny, every decision analyzed, every mistake magnified. You'll be performing for an audience that wants you to fail so they can prove their point. And if we succeed despite that, then you'll have advanced the cause significantly, opened doors, changed minds. Keller's expression was unreadable. But at what personal cost? You'll spend 2 years under a microscope representing everyone except yourself. Is that the career you want? Arya studied the 2-star general who'd apparently been running interference for her without her knowledge. Sir, what do you want me to do? I want you to make the choice that's right for you, not the choice that's right for politics or optics or legacy. He paused. But if I'm being honest, I want you to stay in training command. You're reshaping how we develop snipers. That impact compounds over decades. The other path? It's higher visibility, but potentially shorter duration if things go sideways. You think the unit will fail? I think it has significant structural challenges and insufficient institutional support. Wainwright is brilliant, but she's fighting cultural resistance that runs deep. Keller sighed. Look, 5 years ago, you proved women can perform at Tier 1 level. That case is closed. The question now is whether you want to spend 2 years reproving it for people who've already made up their minds. The parade ground was empty except for them and the weight of decisions that rippled beyond individual lives. I appreciate the context, sir, but you're still undecided. I'm considering all factors. That's what makes you good at this job. You don't react emotionally. He checked his watch. I've got a flight in 90 minutes. Whatever you decide, you'll have my support. But you should know, the training program needs you more than the new unit does. Wainwright can find operators. She can't find another you. He saluted, turned, walked away. Arya stood alone on the parade ground, watching shadows lengthen across empty asphalt. 2 hours until decision time. Her phone buzzed. Text from Lieutenant Chen. Just qualified expert on chaos drills. Thank you for pushing me. Then another from Marcus. Passed my reevaluation. Commander retracted his recycling recommendation. And another from a former student now deployed overseas. Used your movement doctrine in Helmand last week. Saved 3 lives. Can't say more, but thank you. The messages kept coming. Small victories, quiet impacts. Lives changed through teaching rather than doing. She thought about Korish Province, about the high of perfect execution under impossible pressure, about the clarity that came from trigger squeeze and ballistic solution. Then she thought about 5 years of watching students transform, of breaking assumptions, of building competence that rippled outward through hundreds of operators who'd never met her but carried forward her methods. Different kinds of impact, different kinds of legacy. She checked the time, 16:30, 30 minutes left. She pulled out her phone, composed a message to Colonel Wainwright, stared at the blank screen. Her father's compass was in her desk drawer, back in her office. The inscription ran through her mind. True north isn't on the compass, it's in the heart. What was her true north? Proving people wrong through direct action? Or making proof irrelevant through systematic change? She typed the message, read it twice, and hit send before she could second guess. The response came within minutes. Arya exhaled slowly, feeling something settle in her chest. Not relief exactly. Certainty. She walked back toward the training facility as sunset painted the sky orange and gold. Tomorrow there would be students, drills, lessons, the slow, unglamorous work of building excellence one operator at a time. It wasn't the sharp end, but maybe it was something better. The following Monday brought a surprise visitor to the training facility. Arya was conducting a marksmanship fundamentals review when her assistant interrupted. Ma'am, you've got someone in your office, says it's urgent. She handed off the class and headed back, mind running through possibilities. Keller following up, Wainwright pushing back on her decision. The woman in her office was neither. Colonel Sarah Chen, no relation to Lieutenant Chen, stood by the window, Marine Corps uniform crisp, 2 silver oak leaves gleaming. She turned as Arya entered. Captain Vance, Colonel, I wasn't expecting... I know, this is unofficial. Chen's bearing was parade ground perfect, but something in her eyes suggested this wasn't a standard command visit. Close the door, please. Arya complied, instincts prickling. What's this about? I'm here because 6 months ago, one of your students, Corporal David Torres, deployed to Syria with my unit. 3 weeks into the rotation, his position was compromised. 12 hostiles, elevated positions, prepared fields of fire. Arya felt ice settle in her stomach. Was he... He's alive. Because he used your doctrine. Repositioned under fire to gain superior vantage. Eliminated 11 targets before the 12th retreated. Saved 4 Marines, including himself. Chen's expression was carefully neutral. The after-action report reads like a case study. His commanding officer asked where he learned to think tactically instead of mechanically. Torres said a captain at Bragg taught him that doctrine is foundation, not ceiling. He did good work then. He did impossible work. The kind of work that gets people recommended for Bronze Stars. Chen moved from the window, stood directly in front of Arya. But here's the part that bothers me, Captain. When I read the report, I saw your fingerprints all over his decision-making. When I asked around about you, I got interesting responses. What kind of responses? The kind where half the people call you the future of precision warfare and the other half call you a politically protected diversity hire who got lucky once. Chen's voice was measured, clinical. I'm here because I want to know which version is true. Arya met her gaze steadily. Does Torres's performance answer that question? It answers whether your teaching is effective. It doesn't answer whether you can still execute under pressure or whether Korash province was an outlier. The challenge hung in the air between them. With respect, ma'am, why does that matter? I'm in training command. My execution days are behind me. Are they? Chen pulled a folder from her briefcase, set it on Arya's desk. Because I have a problem, Captain. I've got a high-value target in the Levant. Stationary, predictable pattern, heavily guarded. My scout snipers say the shot is possible, but the margin of error is non-existent. Wrong wind call, wrong distance calculation, and we alert the target instead of eliminating him. Arya didn't touch the folder. You want consultation? I want you. I'm not operational anymore. Then get operational. Temporary assignment. 2 weeks prep, 1 week in theater, 1 week debrief. You make the shot, we extract, you're back teaching before the semester ends. Chen's expression hardened. This target is coordinating attacks that are killing American service members. My people can probably get him. You can definitely get him. Math is simple. The math is never simple. No, but the mission is clear. Chen tapped the folder. Read the brief. Think about it. I need an answer in 48 hours. Colonel, I just turned down a JSOC assignment specifically because I want to focus on training. I know. Patricia Wainwright and I are friends, she told me. Chen moved toward the door, paused. But there's a difference between proving yourself through politics and serving the mission because you're the best option. This isn't about optics, Captain. This is about saving lives. She left. Arya stared at the folder on her desk like it was a live grenade. She'd made her choice, committed to teaching, found peace with that decision. Now here was the mission, pulling her back. She opened the folder. The target profile was comprehensive. Khalid Yassin, former intelligence officer turned terrorist coordinator, operating from a compound in the Euphrates Valley. Pattern of life analysis showed he appeared on a specific balcony every morning at 6:20 for exactly 4 minutes. The shot data made her breath catch. 1,247 meters. Variable crosswinds. Urban terrain with thermal distortion. Success window measured in seconds. She flipped through the file. Satellite imagery. Topographic maps. Previous attempt logs showing 3 failed missions. Her mind was already calculating trajectories, wind compensation, hide positions. Then she caught herself. This was the trap. The seduction of the mission. The clarity of ballistic solutions versus the ambiguity of teaching. She closed the folder, but she didn't file it away. That evening, Arya sat in her apartment. Sparse furniture, functional layout, nothing decorative except a single photo of her father in his Marine Corps uniform. The folder lay unopened on her coffee table. She stared at it while dinner went cold. Her phone rang. Holloway. You heard, she said without preamble. Sarah Chen is not subtle. Half of Bragg knows she's trying to recruit you for a direct action mission. I haven't decided anything. But you're thinking about it. Otherwise, you would have refused immediately. His voice was calm, not judgmental. Want to talk through it? I told Wainwright no specifically because I wanted to focus on teaching. Taking Chen's offer contradicts that. Does it? Or does it demonstrate that teaching and operating aren't mutually exclusive? They are when the mission could get me killed and leave the training program without leadership. That's risk assessment, not contradiction. Holloway paused. What does your gut say? Arya picked up the folder, ran her fingers along the edge. My gut says I can make this shot. That the mission is righteous. That American lives are at stake. And your head? My head says I've already proven what I need to prove. That going back to operations is regression, not progression. That I have more impact teaching 100 snipers than being one sniper. Both things can be true. Not simultaneously. Why not? Holloway's voice gained intensity. Arya, you've built a training doctrine around adaptability, around recognizing when the mission requires deviation from the plan. Maybe this is that moment. Or maybe this is ego, missing the adrenaline, missing the simplicity of target and trigger. You think taking a shot at 1,247 meters in hostile territory is simple? Simpler than shaping institutional change, simpler than fighting cultural resistance, simpler than watching students struggle and not being able to do it for them. She set the folder down. In the field, I control outcomes. In the classroom, I influence probabilities. The first is satisfying, the second is important. Silence on the line. Then, you're not wrong, but you're also not considering the third option, which is that you do both. You take the mission, execute perfectly, return to teaching with renewed credibility. Prove that instructors aren't just theorists, they're operators who choose to multiply force through education. The idea settled into her mind like a targeting solution clicking into place. That's rationalization. Maybe, or maybe it's integration. You've spent 5 years building a reputation as a teacher. One mission doesn't erase that. It enhances it. Holloway's tone shifted. But here's what really matters. Are you avoiding the mission because you genuinely believe teaching is more important, or because you're afraid of failing and validating everyone who said courage was luck? The question hit like a punch. Arya sat in silence, confronting the truth she hadn't wanted to examine. I don't know, she admitted quietly. Then figure it out. Because fear-based decisions create regret. Mission-based decisions create purpose. He paused. You've got 48 hours. Use them. The call ended. Arya opened the folder again, studying the satellite imagery with professional detachment. Khalid Yassin. 4 minutes of exposure. 1,247 meters. Variables. Wind, temperature, humidity, urban heat distortion, potential for pattern deviation. Success factors. Hide positioning, equipment selection, atmospheric reading, trigger discipline. Risk factors. Compromised position, mission failure, political blowback, personal injury, institutional impact. She pulled out a notepad, began running calculations. Ballistic coefficient, muzzle velocity, drop compensation. The math was pure, clean, objective, unlike every other decision in her life. 2 hours later, she had a complete mission plan sketched out. 3 potential hide positions, equipment manifest, contingency protocols. She also had clarity. The mission was achievable. High risk, but achievable. The question wasn't capability, it was priority. She thought about Lieutenant Chen gaining confidence through chaos drills, about Marcus overcoming self-doubt through mechanical discipline, about Torres in Syria using her doctrine to save lives. Then she thought about Khalid Yassin coordinating attacks, about American service members dying because she chose to teach instead of execute. Both paths led to impact, different vectors, different scales. She picked up her phone, composed a message to Colonel Sarah Chen, stared at it for a full minute, then deleted it, composed another message, deleted that too. Finally, she stood, walked to her desk, pulled out her father's compass. True north isn't on the compass, it's in the heart. She held the worn brass in her hands, feeling the weight of legacy and choice. What was her true north? The answer came quietly, certain. She typed the message to Colonel Chen, hit send before doubt could resurface. Then she called Holloway back. I made my decision. And? I'm taking the mission. Silence. Then, why? Because you were right. I was avoiding it out of fear, not conviction, and I don't build my life around fear. Good answer. She could hear the smile in his voice. When do you leave? Chen wants me at Quantico in 72 hours for mission prep. 2 weeks training, 1 week operational. 3 weeks total. You'll need someone to cover your classes. Already have a list of qualified instructors. Of course you do. Holloway paused. Arya, one more thing. What? Come back. The training program needs you, but more importantly, I need to know you're okay. Her throat tightened slightly. I'll be fine. Promise me. I promise. She ended the call, stood in her empty apartment surrounded by the weight of decisions made and missions accepted. Outside, night had fallen. Somewhere in the Levant, Khalid Yassin was planning attacks. In 3 weeks, she'd be the last thing he never saw. But first, she had to prepare. She opened her laptop, pulled up her training files, and began transferring lesson plans to her backup instructors. The classroom could wait. The mission couldn't. And somewhere in her chest, beneath the professional calculation and tactical planning, something ancient stirred. The part of her that her father had forged in Montana cold and rifle discipline. The part that turned doubt into silence. One shot at a time. Quantico was rain and cold concrete when Arya arrived 72 hours later. Colonel Sarah Chen met her at the airfield personally, no ceremony, just a nod and a gesture toward a waiting vehicle. They drove through the base in silence, windshield wipers beating rhythmic time against Virginia weather. You'll meet the team in 30 minutes, Chen said finally. They don't know who you are yet, just that they're getting a specialist consultant for a high-difficulty shot. Will that be a problem? Depends on whether you can back up your reputation. Chen glanced at her. Some of them were in theater when Torres pulled off that engagement in Syria. Word travels. They'll be expecting someone who walks on water. I just shoot straight. At 1,200 meters through crosswind in urban terrain. That's not shooting straight. That's surgical. Chen pulled into a parking space outside a nondescript building. Fair warning, my team leader, Gunnery Sergeant Alex Vega, has strong opinions about outside consultants. He thinks we should handle this internally. Why bring me in then? Because I've lost 3 good Marines trying to make this shot. I'm not losing a 4th because my gunny has pride issues. Chen killed the engine. You'll have 72 hours to prep. After that, we're wheels up whether you're ready or not. Mission window closes in 6 days. They exited the vehicle into rain that felt like needles. Oh, the briefing room smelled like bad coffee and skepticism. 6 Marines sat around a conference table, 5 men, 1 woman, all wearing the casual wariness of operators who'd seen too much to trust easily. At the head of the table sat Gunnery Sergeant Alex Vega, mid-30s, arms crossed, jaw set like reinforced concrete. Chen entered first, Arya behind her. Vega's eyes tracked Arya with open assessment. The others followed his lead. This is Captain Arya Vance, Army Special Operations. She'll be providing technical consultation for the Yassin operation. Chen moved to the front of the room, pulled up a satellite image on the screen. Captain Vance has extensive experience with extended-range precision engagement. She'll be reviewing our previous attempt analysis and providing recommendations. Recommendations. Vega's tone made the word sound like an insult. With respect, ma'am, we don't need recommendations. We need a different angle of attack. The shot itself is solid. It's the positioning that's killing us. Arya set her bag down, moved to the table. Show me the previous attempts. One of the Marines, name tape read Kowalski, pulled up 3 mission reports on a laptop. Arya scanned them methodically. First attempt, 1,190 meters. Wind miscalculation. Shot went wide. Target alerted. Pattern changed for 6 weeks. Second attempt, 1,247 meters from elevated hide. Perfect conditions. Shooter's position compromised 30 seconds before firing window. Forced abort, 2 Marines wounded during extraction. Third attempt, 1,180 meters, different approach vector. Target appeared 2 minutes late. Thermal distortion from morning sun made ranging impossible. Mission scrubbed. Arya absorbed the data, mind already running calculations. Who made the shots? First attempt was Corporal Hayes. Vega gestured to a lean man with 1,000-yard eyes. Second was me. Third was Staff Sergeant Diaz. He nodded toward the woman at the table, compact and watchful. And all three of you assessed the shot as achievable. Achievable, yes. Probable, no. Diaz's voice was matter-of-fact. The variables stack against us. Wind patterns in that valley shift every 90 seconds. Urban heat creates mirage effects that corrupt ranging. And the target's exposure window is exactly 4 minutes. Miss that window, you're waiting another day while he potentially changes pattern. So the problem isn't the shot, Arya said. It's the environment. The environment is the shot. This from Hayes, his voice quiet but certain. At that distance, you're not shooting at a person. You're shooting at atmospheric conditions that happen to contain a person. Arya looked at him with new respect. That was exactly right. Then we need to control the environment. Vega's expression hardened. Can't control wind, Captain. Can't control thermal distortion. Can't control when the target decides to take his morning coffee. No, but we can position to minimize their impact. Arya turned to the satellite imagery. Where were your hides? Kowalski highlighted 3 positions on the map. All elevated, all with clear sightlines to the target balcony, all wrong. These positions optimize for visibility, Arya said slowly, but they maximize environmental interference. You're shooting through the worst possible atmospheric conditions. They're the only positions that give us the angle, Vega countered. They're the only obvious positions. Arya studied the topography, letting her father's training surface. Read the terrain like language. Find what others miss. There's another option. She zoomed in on a section of the map 300 meters west of the previous hides. Lower elevation. Worse sightlines at first glance, but the wind patterns would be different there. The thermal distortion minimal, and the angle to target, while extreme, was geometrically cleaner. That's a compound wall, Vega said flatly. No elevation, no concealment. You'd be shooting through a 6-inch gap between buildings with zero room for error. Yes, that's suicide. That's physics. Arya pulled up a ballistic calculator on her phone. Input the variables. Distance, 1,247 meters. Elevation, minimal. Wind exposure, reduced by urban canyon effect. Thermal distortion, negligible in morning shade. This position turns environmental variables from enemies into neutralizers. Yes, the shot window is smaller, but the atmospheric consistency is higher. Diaz leaned forward, studying the calculation. That's a 47-degree angle through a gap that's 8 inches? 6 inches at widest point. Arya met her eyes. I've made tighter shots. The room went silent. When? Vega's challenge was direct. Korash Province, 5 years ago. Multiple targets, variable distance, forest density that made your urban canyon look like open desert. Recognition flickered across Hayes' face. Wait, Vance? Spectre. You're the Korash sniper? I was on that operation, yes. Holy shit. Hayes looked at the others. She's the one who... Who did her job? Arya interrupted. Same as you're trying to do now. The legend is inflated. The physics aren't. But Vega wasn't buying it. Korash was 5 years ago. This is now. You haven't been operational since. You've been teaching. Teaching the doctrine I developed through operational experience. Doctrine isn't execution. No, but execution without doctrine is luck, and luck runs out. Arya's voice stayed level, professional. Gunnery Sergeant, I understand the skepticism. You've been trying to make this shot for 3 months. I walked in 30 minutes ago claiming I can do what you couldn't. If I were you, I'd be skeptical too. Vega's jaw worked. So prove it. How? We've got a mock-up range, same distance, same angle, same environmental variables simulated as close as we can get. He stood. You make that shot consistently, I'll consider your recommendation. You can't, you stay in the briefing room and let us do our jobs. Chen started to intervene. Gunny, that's not... It's fine. Arya cut her off, eyes locked on Vega. When? Now. Let me get my rifle. What? The range was an engineering marvel. 1,200 meters of carefully calibrated distance with adjustable wind fans, thermal generators, and movable barriers that simulated urban terrain. The Marines had clearly spent significant resources building this. They'd also spent significant time failing on it. Arya set her rifle case down at the firing line, aware of 6 sets of eyes tracking her every movement. The Marines had spread out along the observation deck, some with spotting scopes, others with rangefinders, all waiting to see if the legend matched reality. Vega stood beside her, arms crossed. Target will appear for 30 seconds at the 1,247-meter mark. Gap between barriers is 6 inches. Wind fans are set to valley patterns, variable, shifting every 90 to 120 seconds. Thermal distortion is active. You get 1 shot. Understood. She assembled her rifle with practiced efficiency. Not the SR-25 from Korash, that platform was retired. This was an Accuracy International AXMC .338. Lapua Magnum, configured for extended range. She'd requested it specifically for this mission. Bipod deployed, scope mounted, chamber checked. Vega watched every movement. You always this methodical? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's SEAL talk. That's physics talk. They just borrowed it. Arya pulled out her Kestrel, took atmospheric readings. Wind, variable 8 to 14 miles per hour. Temperature, 42 degrees. Humidity, 67%. Barometric pressure, stable. She input the data into her ballistic calculator, verified the numbers twice, then set up behind the rifle. Through the scope, the world compressed to reticle and target zone. The gap between barriers was exactly as advertised. 6 inches of clearance with concrete on both sides. Margin for error measured in fractions. Target active in 3, Kowalski called from the control booth. 2, 1. Mark. A silhouette appeared at 1,247 meters, visible through the 6-inch gap. Arya felt the wind against her cheek, counted heartbeats, read the mirage shimmer through the scope, wind shift coming in 5 seconds. She waited. 4 seconds. 3. The wind steadied, just for a moment, just long enough. Exhale. Squeeze. The rifle pushed back into her shoulder. Through the scope, she watched the impact. Center mass. Perfect. Hit, Kowalski confirmed from the booth, voice carefully neutral. Vega said nothing. Again, Arya said quietly. What? You said consistently. 1 shot isn't consistent. Run it again. Kowalski looked at Vega, who nodded once. Target resetting. 30 seconds. Arya stayed behind the rifle, making minute adjustments. The wind had shifted slightly, temperature dropping as clouds moved overhead. She recalculated, adjusted, prepared. Target active in 3, 2, 1. Mark. This time the silhouette appeared 2 inches left of the previous position, randomly placed to prevent pattern memorization. Arya tracked it, read the wind, waited for the atmospheric window, fired. Hit. Still no reaction from Vega. Again, Prenet, Arya said. They ran it 7 more times, 7 more hits, different positions, different wind patterns, different thermal conditions. Arya shot through all of it with mechanical precision, each round finding center mass despite variables that should have made consistency impossible. After the 9th shot, Vega finally spoke. How? Arya cleared her rifle, stood. Practice. 10,000 rounds at distance. Learning to read environment as data instead of obstacle. Building fundamentals so solid they function autonomously under pressure. That's the teaching answer. What's the real answer? She met his eyes. The real answer is that I spent my childhood in Montana winters shooting at 700 meters before breakfast because my father believed comfort was the enemy of competence. The real answer is that I've been training for shots like this since I was 14. The real answer is that this isn't special for me. It's baseline. Diaz whistled low. That's cold, Captain. That's honest. Arya packed her rifle. Gunnery Sergeant, I'm not here to make you look bad. I'm here because Colonel Chen asked, and because the mission matters. You're excellent Marines. I'm just specialized for this specific problem set. Vega stared at the target range, jaw working, pride warring with pragmatism. Finally, the compound wall position. You really think you can make that shot in theater? Yes. Even with hostile presence, potential for compromise, all the variables we can't simulate here? Yes. Why should I believe you? Because I just proved it 9 times. And because if I wasn't certain, I wouldn't be here. Arya's voice softened slightly. Gunny, I've read your file. 3 deployments. 2 bronze stars. You're not someone who needs protecting from hard truth. So here's the truth. This shot is at the edge of your capability, but within mine. Not because you're inadequate, because this is what I do. It's the only thing I do better than anyone else alive. The statement hung in the air, absolute, uncompromising, impossible to argue against after 9 consecutive hits. Vega exhaled slowly. Colonel Chen was right about you. What did she say? That you were either the solution to our problem or the most arrogant person she'd ever met. He smiled slightly. Looks like both. I'll take both. Hayes approached from the observation deck. Captain, if you're making the shot, what do you need from us? Security, extraction, intelligence on pattern variations. Arya shouldered her rifle case. I'll handle ballistics. You handle everything else. We work as a team, not as specialist in support. Diaz nodded slowly. That works. Kowalski pulled out a tactical map. Let's talk infiltration routes. That compound wall position is exposed from 3 sides. We'll need to move in pre-dawn, establish security, and hold for potentially hours if the target delays. Agreed. And we need alternate exfil plans. Primary, secondary, tertiary. The team gathered around the map, skepticism replaced by professional focus. Chen watched from the doorway, expression carefully neutral, but eyes showing satisfaction. Vega caught her look, shook his head slightly, then turned back to the planning. The outsider had just become essential personnel. The next 72 hours were exhaustive preparation. Arya worked with the team running infiltration drills, practicing movement under simulated hostile observation, refining communication protocols. She also spent hours alone on the range, shooting under every environmental condition the Marines could simulate. Dawn shots with thermal distortion, dusk shots with shifting light, night shots with infrared targeting. Each session refined her understanding of how the Euphrates Valley would behave. Each round built muscle memory for the specific demands of 1,247 meters through urban terrain. On the second day, Chen pulled her aside after a briefing. You're fitting in better than I expected. They're good operators, easy to work with competent people. Vega respects you now. That's significant. Chen pulled up a classified report on her tablet. But there's something you should know. Intelligence just updated the threat assessment. Yasin's security has increased. 12 guards instead of 8. Roving patrols on 30-minute intervals. Arya absorbed the information. Does that change the mission? It changes the risk profile. Increases the chance of compromise during infiltration or exfil. JSOC is recommending we abort and wait for a better opportunity. Is there a better opportunity? Not in the foreseeable future. Yasin is planning something big. Signals intelligence suggests a major attack within 2 weeks. If we wait, people die. Then we don't wait. Chen studied her. You're very certain for someone who hasn't been operational in 5 years. Certainty isn't about currency. It's about preparation. Arya gestured to the range beyond the window. I've made this shot 100 times in the last 3 days, under worse conditions than we'll face in theater. The ballistics are solid. The team is solid. The mission is achievable. And if something goes wrong, then we adapt. Same as any operation. Captain, if this mission fails, the political blowback will be significant. You'll be scrutinized. Your teaching career could be impacted. Colonel, with respect, I stopped making decisions based on political consequences after Karash Province. Arya's voice was quiet but absolute. I'm here because you asked, and because the mission matters. The rest is noise. Chen nodded slowly. Your father would be proud of that answer. You knew him? Met him once at a conference, 2004. He gave a presentation on advanced reconnaissance techniques that changed how I thought about sniper employment. She paused. He said something I've never forgotten. The mission doesn't care about your fears. It only cares whether you execute. You remind me of him. Arya felt something tighten in her chest. He taught me everything that matters. Then honor that teaching. Make the shot. Come home. Chen's expression hardened. Because if you don't come home, I'll have to explain to Patricia Wainwright why I pulled her star instructor out of training command for a mission that went sideways. Understood, ma'am. The final mission brief took place 18 hours before Wheels Up. The entire team assembled in a secure room. Arya, Vega, Diaz, Hayes, Kowalski, and 2 additional Marines who'd handle perimeter security. Chen stood at the front, classified imagery on the screen behind her. Final intelligence update. Target maintains pattern. Balcony appearance at 0620. Local 4-minute exposure window. Weather forecast is favorable. Minimal wind, clear skies, low humidity. Infiltration team will insert via helicopter at 0400. Move overland to compound wall position. Establish hide by 0545. Mission window opens at 0620. Primary shot belongs to Captain Vance. Vega, your backup in case of equipment failure. Vega nodded. He'd accepted his role without complaint, professional enough to recognize when someone else was better suited for specific tasks. After the shot, exfil on foot to primary extraction point, 2 clicks northeast. Helicopter pickup at 0645. If primary is compromised, secondary is 4 clicks east. Tertiary is overland to friendly lines, approximately 12 clicks. Questions? Hayes raised a hand. Rules of engagement if we're compromised during infiltration? Weapons free for self-defense. But remember, this is a surgical strike, not a firefight. The goal is 1 shot, 0 footprint. We go loud. The entire region knows we're there. Understood. Diaz, what's the contingency if target doesn't appear? We hold for 24 hours if tactically feasible. If not, we abort and reassess. But intelligence confidence is high that pattern will hold. And if the shot misses? This from Kowalski, blunt and direct. The room went silent. Chen's eyes moved to Arya. Captain? The shot won't miss. Arya's voice was steady, certain. I've made this shot 112 times in the last 3 days under varying conditions. The ballistics are verified. The equipment is zeroed. The atmospheric model is accurate. Barring equipment failure or catastrophic environmental shift, the mathematics guarantee success. Mathematics don't guarantee anything in combat, Kowalski said. No, but they stack probability, and I'm very good at reading probability. Arya met his eyes. I understand the skepticism. You've been trying to make this shot for 3 months. I'm claiming I can do it first try. That sounds arrogant, but it's not arrogance when it's backed by demonstrable competence. I've proven I can make this shot. Tomorrow, I'll prove it matters. Vega spoke up. Captain Vance has earned her place on this team. I trust her capability. Coming from him, that was significant. Chen nodded. Final equipment check at 0200. We load at 0300. Wheels up at 0315. Try to get some rest. It's going to be a long day. The brief ended. The team dispersed to final preparations. Arya stayed behind, staring at the satellite imagery of the Euphrates Valley. Somewhere in that terrain, Khalid Yassin was planning attacks, living his pattern, unaware that tomorrow morning would be his last. She pulled out her father's compass, held it for a moment. True north isn't on the compass. It's in the heart. Tomorrow she'd find out if her heart was still true. The insertion was textbook perfect. The helicopter dropped them 4 clicks from the target compound at 0402 local time. Desert night wrapped around them, cold, dark, utterly silent except for wind and distant vehicle sounds. Arya moved with the team in tactical column, night vision turning the world green and stark. 60 pounds of gear plus rifle. Every step calculated, every sound suppressed. Vega led point, reading terrain with practiced ease. Diaz covered rear. Hayes and Kowalski maintained interval. The 2 security Marines, Phelps and Okonkwo, bracketed the formation. They covered 4 kilometers in 90 minutes, moving through wadi systems and using elevation to mask their approach. At 0534, they reached the compound wall position. It was exactly as the satellite imagery promised. A low wall, urban canyon beyond, 6-inch gap between buildings that created the shot corridor to Yasin's balcony. Arya established her hide while the team set security. Rifle deployed, bipod stable on compressed sandbag, rangefinder confirmed distance, 1,247 meters. Kestrel reading, wind 4 miles per hour northeast, temperature 51 degrees, humidity 42%, perfect conditions. Through her scope, she could see the balcony clearly, empty now, waiting for its occupant. Vega positioned 15 feet to her left with a backup rifle. Systems check. Arya verified her equipment. Rifle green, optics green, laser rangefinder green, ballistic computer green, all systems nominal. Copy. We hold position until 0620. The wait began. 46 minutes of absolute stillness. The team maintained security in a loose perimeter, Phelps and Okonkwo watching approaches, Hayes monitoring communications, Kowalski on thermal scanner watching for patrols. Arya controlled her breathing, heart rate dropping into operational mode. This was familiar territory. The waiting, the focus, the compression of the world into scope picture and trigger discipline. At 0610, Hayes whispered through comms, patrol approaching from the north. 3 hostiles, AK platforms, moving toward our position. Distance? Vega's voice was controlled. 200 meters. They're not searching, just routine patrol. Can we avoid contact? Negative. Their route will bring them within 50 meters of our position. Arya kept her eye on the scope, but her mind calculated implications. 50 meters was danger close. If the patrol spotted them, the mission was blown. If they engaged the patrol, the noise would alert Yasin and change his pattern. No good options. Vega made the decision. Phelps, Okonkwo, prepare to interdict. Suppressed only. If they spot us, we go silent and fast. Understood? Copy. Arya watched through her peripheral vision as Phelps and Okonkwo moved into position, suppressed rifles ready. The patrol came closer. 150 meters. 100. Then they stopped. One of the hostiles lit a cigarette. The 3 of them stood there, talking in Arabic, weapons slung casually, directly in the line between the team and any rapid exfil. They're not moving, Hayes whispered. How long until mission window? Chen's voice came through from command, monitoring via satellite link. Arya checked her watch. 9 minutes. The patrol continued their conversation, laughing about something, completely unaware that 7 heavily armed Americans were 50 meters away. Time compressed. 8 minutes. 7. At 6 minutes, one of the hostiles pointed back toward the compound. They started moving again, heading away from the team position. Patrol clear, Hayes confirmed. We're good. Arya exhaled slowly, returning full focus to the scope. 5 minutes. Through the glass, she could see movement inside the building, lights coming on. Someone preparing for the day. 4 minutes. Her finger moved to the trigger. Not touching yet. Just ready. 3 minutes. The balcony door opened. A figure stepped out holding a coffee cup, looking toward the rising sun. Khalid Yasin. Target acquired, Arya whispered. Confirmed, Vega said, watching through his own scope. Wind? 4 miles per hour, steady, no adjustment needed. Range? 1247, verified. You have the shot. Arya's world collapsed to reticle and breathing. Yasin stood at the balcony railing, sipping coffee, unaware. The gap between buildings framed him perfectly. 6 inches of clearance, but from this angle it was enough. She read the wind against her cheek, felt the temperature, calculated final atmospheric variables. Every variable aligned. She exhaled halfway, finger moving to the trigger. Then Yasin's phone rang. He turned away, walking back toward the door, answering the call. He's moving, Vega hissed. I see it. Arya tracked him through the scope. If he went inside, the window closed, pattern broken, mission failed. But Yasin paused at the door, still talking on the phone. Half his body visible, half concealed by the doorframe. Partial target, more difficult shot, but still achievable. "Vance, you have 9 seconds before he's inside," Hayes called. Arya recalculated. The angle was tighter now, margin of error smaller, but the mathematics still worked. 7 seconds. She adjusted point of aim to account for the partial exposure. 5 seconds. Yassine laughed at something on the phone, turning slightly back toward the balcony. 3 seconds. The wind held steady. Temperature stable. Atmospheric conditions perfect. 2 seconds. Arya's finger took up trigger slack, pressure building with mechanical precision. 1 second. Yassine stepped fully back onto the balcony, phone still to his ear, completely exposed. Target perfect. Arya exhaled the last of her breath and squeezed the trigger. The rifle pushed back into her shoulder, suppressed report still loud in the quiet dawn. Through the scope, she watched the bullet travel across 1,247 meters of space, cutting through morning air with mathematical certainty. Impact was center mass, exactly as calculated. Yassine dropped the phone, collapsed against the balcony railing, and fell. "Target down," Vega confirmed. "Confirmed kill," Arya said quietly. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then chaos erupted in the compound, shouting, running figures, someone screaming for a medic, but Yassine wasn't getting up. "Exfil now," Vega ordered. "Move! Move! Move!" The team collapsed their position with practiced efficiency. Arya broke down her rifle, packed it, moved with the others through the urban canyon toward the extraction point. Behind them, the compound was full alert, guards pouring out, searching for threats they wouldn't find. The Americans were already ghosts, melting into the desert as the sun rose higher. They reached the primary extraction point at 0643, 2 minutes ahead of schedule. The helicopter was waiting, rotors already spinning. They loaded fast, nobody speaking, adrenaline still running hot. As the aircraft lifted, Arya looked back at the compound shrinking in the distance. 1 shot, 1 kill, mission complete. Vega was staring at her with something like awe. That was impossible. "That was mathematics," Arya replied. But her hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline finally catching up. "Same thing," Hayes said, grinning. "You just made the shot of the decade." Diaz reached over, squeezed Arya's shoulder. "Welcome back to operations, Captain." Arya nodded, throat tight. She'd proven what she needed to prove. Now she just had to figure out what came next. The helicopter carried them towards safety, while in the Euphrates Valley, Khalid Yassine's body grew cold on a balcony that had become his graveyard. 1 shot had stopped planning that would have killed dozens. 1 shot had vindicated 3 months of failed attempts. 1 shot had reminded everyone watching that Korash province hadn't been luck. It had been warning, and Arya Vance had just proven she could do it again. Anytime. Anywhere. At any distance. The legend wasn't inflated after all. It was just getting started. The debrief began 6 hours after touchdown. Arya sat in a sterile room at Quantico, still wearing her field gear, rifle case at her feet. Across the table sat Colonel Chen, Lieutenant General Keller via secure video link, and a civilian she didn't recognize. Mid-50s, expensive suit, Pentagon credentials that said Special Assistant to the Secretary of Defense. The civilian spoke first. "Captain Vance, I'm Richard Drummond. I've been reviewing the operational footage from this morning's engagement. Remarkable shooting." "Thank you, sir." "The shot was captured via drone surveillance. We have full telemetry, wind speed, atmospheric conditions, bullet trajectory, impact verification." Drummond pulled up data on a tablet. 1,247 meters, 4-mile-per-hour crosswind, 6-inch gap between structures. Target partially concealed. You made that shot in under 2 seconds from target exposure. "Target was fully exposed when I fired, sir. The partial concealment occurred earlier during his phone call." "Still, the precision is extraordinary." Drummond set the tablet down. "Which brings me to why I'm here. The Secretary is very interested in your capabilities, specifically in how we might leverage them for future operations." Something in his tone made Arya's instincts prickle. "I'm assigned to training command, sir. This was a temporary detachment." "Yes, about that." Drummond glanced at Chen, then back to Arya. Colonel Chen has recommended you for permanent reassignment to operational duty. JSOC concurs. We'd like you to join a new precision strike unit focused on high-value target elimination. The room went quiet. Arya looked at Chen, who met her gaze steadily. No apology, no explanation, just professional assessment. I already declined a similar offer from Colonel Wainwright, Arya said carefully. This is different. Wainwright's unit is experimental, politically motivated. This is purely operational. No cameras, no publicity, no political agenda, just mission execution. Drummond leaned forward. Captain, you're the most effective long-range precision shooter currently active. We need that capability deployed, not teaching. Teaching force multiplies impact. One operator teaches hundreds who deploy worldwide. One operator eliminates threats that kill hundreds. Drummond's voice hardened. Khalid Yassin was planning an attack that intelligence suggests would have killed 60 to 80 coalition personnel. You stopped that today. How many students would need to deploy to generate equivalent impact? The math was brutal and accurate. Arya's jaw tightened. With respect, sir, reducing human capability to mathematical efficiency misses the strategic value of institutional knowledge transfer. Does it? Or does it miss the immediate tactical value of having our best asset actively hunting our worst enemies? Drummond pulled up another file. We have 17 high-value targets currently active. Every one of them requires precision elimination in denied territory. You could clear that list in 6 months. Your students might eventually develop the capability to do the same, but eventually doesn't save the lives being lost now. Keller's voice cut through the video link. Mr. Drummond, Captain Vance's training program has fundamentally reshaped sniper doctrine across special operations. The institutional value of that work cannot be overstated. I'm not understating it, General. I'm prioritizing current operational needs over future theoretical benefits. Drummond turned back to Arya. Captain, I need to know, are you willing to return to full operational status? Arya felt the weight of the question settle over her like armor. This was the choice she'd been avoiding. Teaching versus executing. Influence versus action. Legacy versus immediacy. I need time to consider. You don't have time. We've got another target developing in North Africa. Window opens in 3 weeks. We need your answer now. Mr. Drummond, Chen's voice cut sharp. Captain Vance just completed a high-stress mission after being out of operational rotation for 5 years. She's entitled to proper consideration time before making career-altering decisions. This isn't career-altering, Colonel. This is career-fulfilling. She's a precision shooter. We need precision shooting. The math is simple. The math is never simple when humans are involved. Arya's voice was quiet but absolute. Sir, I understand the operational need. I understand the capability gap. But making this decision under pressure, 6 hours after a mission, while adrenaline is still active, that's how you get commitments that lead to regret. Drummond's expression hardened. Captain, with all due respect, your personal comfort is secondary to national security requirements. And with all due respect, sir, operators who make decisions based on external pressure instead of informed assessment tend to burn out or get killed. Neither outcome serves national security. Arya met his eyes without flinching. I'll give you an answer in 48 hours, not before. 24 hours? 48, or you can find another shooter. She paused. But we both know there isn't another shooter who can make that shot consistently. The statement hung in the air, not arrogance, just reality backed by demonstrable evidence. Drummond stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. 48 hours. But understand, Captain, this offer has an expiration. If you decline, we move forward with alternative solutions. You won't get another chance to be part of this program. Understood, sir. The meeting ended. Keller's video link disconnected. Drummond left without further comment. Chen remained. Arya slumped slightly in her chair, exhaustion finally catching up. You okay? Chen asked. Define okay. Not having a breakdown. Not making rash decisions. Not letting Richard Drummond's pressure campaign push you into something you'll regret. Then yes, I'm okay. Arya rubbed her eyes. He's not wrong about the operational need. He's not wrong about a lot of things. Doesn't make him right about you. Chen stood, moved to the coffee pot in the corner, poured 2 cups. Drummond is a bureaucrat who sees operators as assets to be deployed. He doesn't understand that assets have limits, that deployment comes with costs, that humans aren't fungible resources. But the targets are real. The threat is real. Always is. Chen handed her a cup. Question is whether you're the only solution or just the most convenient one. Arya sipped the coffee, military grade, which meant barely drinkable. You recommended me for permanent reassignment. I recommended you as an option. I didn't advocate for it. Chen sat back down. Arya, you're extraordinary at what you do. But extraordinary doesn't mean obligated. You've already served, already proven yourself, already paid in blood and stress and years of your life. Nobody gets to demand more just because you're capable of giving it. Then why does it feel like I'm letting people down by saying no? Because competent people get conditioned to feel responsible for every problem they could theoretically solve. Chen's expression softened. Your father struggled with that too. After he retired, he got calls constantly. Old units wanting consultation, active operators seeking advice, commanders trying to pull him back for just one more mission. He said no to all of it. He did? He did. Told me once that he'd earned the right to stop proving himself, that his value wasn't measured by continued deployment, but by the foundation he'd built for others to stand on. Chen paused. You've built that foundation, Arya. Your students are deploying worldwide using doctrine you created. That's not theoretical impact. That's real, measurable, generational change. Arya stared into her coffee, processing. But Yasin is dead because you chose to take this mission. That was your choice, made consciously, with full understanding of costs and benefits, but it doesn't obligate you to make the same choice again and again until you burn out. What if there's another Yasin in 3 weeks? Another threat I could stop. Then another shooter steps up. The mission always finds someone. The question is whether that someone is you, and whether you're making that choice for the right reasons. The room settled into silence, broken only by the hum of fluorescent lights and distant base traffic. Finally, Arya said, Drummond mentioned you recommended me, but you don't actually want me to accept, do you? Chen smiled slightly. I want you to make the choice that serves you, not the choice that serves Richard Drummond's operational efficiency metrics. If that's accepting, I'll support it completely. If that's declining, I'll support that too. But I won't pretend the costs aren't real either way. What costs? Accepting means giving up teaching, giving up stability, giving up any semblance of normal life. You'll deploy constantly, live under pressure, and carry the weight of every target you hit and every one you miss. That's the sharp end. It breaks people. And declining? Declining means living with the knowledge that you could have done more, that somewhere, targets you could have eliminated are still operating, that maybe, if you'd said yes, some specific attack wouldn't have happened. Chen's voice was matter-of-fact. That's the cost of stepping back. The what-ifs. They don't go away just because your choice was rational. Arya absorbed that brutal honesty. So either way, I lose something. Welcome to leadership. Every decision has costs. The question is which costs you can live with. Arya left the debriefing facility as evening fell over Quantico. She'd been awake for 26 hours straight. Insertion prep, mission execution, extraction, debrief. Her body screamed for sleep, but her mind wouldn't settle. She found herself at the base chapel, not for religious purposes, but because it was quiet and empty. Sat in the back pew, rifle case beside her, staring at stained glass that caught the last light of day. Her phone buzzed. Text from Holloway. Heard the mission was successful. Also heard Drummond made you an offer. Call me. She considered ignoring it, but Holloway had earned straight communication. She stepped outside, dialed. He answered on the first ring. You okay? Physically? Yes. Mentally? Processing? Drummond's pushing for operational reassignment. You're well informed. Keller called me. He's concerned Drummond is using your success today to pressure you into something you don't want. Holloway paused. Are you being pressured? Aggressively? And how are you feeling about it? Arya leaned against the chapel wall, watching clouds catch fire in the sunset. Conflicted. The mission felt right. Clean execution, clear purpose, measurable impact. Part of me wants more of that. And the other part? The other part remembers why I chose teaching, The force multiplication, the generational impact, the fact that I can shape hundreds of careers instead of just executing my own. Both things can be true. That's what Chen said, but they can't both be pursued simultaneously. I have to choose. Holloway was quiet for a moment, then, "Tell me about the shot." The subject change caught her off guard. "What about it?" "Walk me through it. The setup, the execution, the feeling when you pulled the trigger." Arya closed her eyes, reconstructing the moment. Target appeared at 0620, answered his phone, moved toward the door. I tracked him, waiting for full exposure. He stepped back onto the balcony 11 seconds into the window. Wind was stable. Atmospheric conditions perfect. I had maybe 2 seconds of optimal targeting before he could move again. "What were you thinking in those 2 seconds?" "Nothing. That's the point. Thinking slows you down. I was just executing. Wind read, distance verified, trigger squeeze. Pure mechanics." "And after? When he went down?" "Relief. Confirmation. Then immediate focus on exfil. There wasn't time for reflection until the helicopter." "So in the moment, it was clean. Automatic. No doubt, no hesitation, no second guessing." "Yes." "That's what you're missing, isn't it? That clarity. That absolute certainty of purpose." The observation hit hard because it was accurate. "Maybe." "Teaching doesn't give you that. Teaching is ambiguous, slow developing, uncertain. You put in the work and hope it translates years down the line. But you never really know if you changed someone's life or just added noise to their training. That's not fair to teaching. I'm not being fair. I'm being honest." Holloway's voice was gentle but relentless. "Arya, I've watched you for 5 years. You're extraordinary at teaching. You've reshaped doctrine, influenced hundreds of operators, built programs that will outlast your career. But I've also watched you struggle with the ambiguity, with not knowing if your impact is real or just theoretical. So you think I should accept Drummond's offer? I think you should stop trying to logic your way into the right answer and admit what your gut is telling you." Arya opened her eyes, staring at the darkening sky. "My gut says I want both. I want the clarity of execution and the scale of teaching. I want to make shots that save lives today and build shooters who save lives tomorrow. Can't have both. Not simultaneously." "I know. So which one matters more?" The question hung there, simple and impossible. Arya thought about Lieutenant Chen gaining confidence, about Marcus overcoming doubt, about Torres in Syria using her doctrine to save 4 Marines. Then she thought about Khalid Yassin planning attacks that would have killed dozens, about the 17 other targets Drummond mentioned, about the immediate, measurable, undeniable impact of precision elimination. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "Then figure it out. Because in 48 hours, you're going to have to commit one way or another, and whichever you choose, you're going to have to live with the costs." "Helpful," she said dryly. "I'm not here to be helpful. I'm here to tell you the truth." He paused. "But for what it's worth. I've seen you teach. I've seen you operate. You're elite at both. The question isn't capability, it's sustainability. Which one can you do for the next decade without burning out or losing yourself? And you think operating will burn me out? I think operating at the level Drummond wants will consume you completely. You'll deploy constantly, live under pressure, and carry weight that accumulates until it crushes you. I've seen it happen to operators who aren't half as driven as you are. They break. Or they become something cold and mechanical that executes missions perfectly but stops being human. You don't think I can handle it? I think you can handle anything for a while. Question is whether you want to spend your 30s and 40s handling it, or whether you want to build something that outlasts you. Arya absorbed that, throat tight. 48 hours, Holloway said finally. Use them. And whatever you decide, I'll support you. But don't decide based on obligation or pressure or what Richard Drummond thinks national security requires. Decide based on what Arya Vance wants her life to look like in 10 years. The call ended. Arya stood alone outside the chapel as full darkness fell, holding a phone that felt like a grenade with the pin pulled. 48 hours. She headed back to temporary quarters, mind churning. The next morning brought clarity in an unexpected form. Arya was running pre-dawn laps around the base perimeter. Old habit, thinking while moving, when she encountered Gunnery Sergeant Vega doing the same. They fell into step together, running in silence for half a mile before Vega spoke. "Heard Drummond made you an offer. News travels fast." "Small community? Good news travels faster." He glanced at her. "Are you taking it?" "Still deciding." "Can I offer unsolicited advice?" "Can I stop you?" He smiled. "No, ma'am. Here it is. Don't do it." That caught her off guard. "Why not? You saw what I can do. You know the operational value." "I did. I do. And that's exactly why you shouldn't do it." Vega adjusted his pace slightly. "I've been operational for 12 years, 6 deployments, more missions than I can count. Know what I've learned?" "What?" "That being the best at something doesn't obligate you to do it forever. That capability doesn't equal destiny. That sometimes the most valuable thing an elite operator can do is step back and build the next generation." They ran past the obstacle course, empty in the pre-dawn darkness. "I'm stepping back in 3 months," Vega continued. "Retiring at 36. Got offers to stay, to consult, to do private contracting. Turned them all down." "Why?" "Because I've got a daughter who's 7 years old and barely knows me. Because I've spent 12 years proving I'm the best at what I do, and proving it again won't change anything. Because legacy isn't about how long you operate. It's about what you build that lasts after you're gone." Arya processed that. "Drummond would say you're wasting your talent." Drummond measures value in immediate tactical output. But there's strategic value in knowing when to stop, in recognizing that your contribution might be bigger if you change how you contribute. He slowed to a walk, breathing controlled. "Ma'am, yesterday's mission, that was perfect execution. You saved lives, eliminated a threat, proved your capability, but you've been proving that capability for 5 years through teaching. One mission doesn't invalidate 5 years of institutional impact. But it demonstrates I can still operate at elite level." "Absolutely. Question is whether you should." Vega stopped, turned to face her directly. "Captain, I've worked with a lot of snipers. Most are good. Some are great. You're transcendent, but transcendent doesn't mean indestructible. The sharp end breaks people, even the best ones, especially the best ones, because they get deployed constantly until there's nothing left." "You think I'd break?" "I think you're human, and humans have limits even when they don't want to admit it." His expression was serious. "You've got a choice most operators never get. To step back while you're still at the top, while you're still valuable, while you can still shape the future instead of just executing the present. That's rare. Don't waste it chasing another adrenaline hit." He resumed walking toward the barracks. Arya stood alone on the running path, watching him disappear into the gray morning. Transcendent. That word stuck with her. She'd never thought of herself that way, just capable, just trained, just relentlessly prepared. But maybe there was truth in Vega's assessment. Maybe being transcendent meant recognizing when transcendence was better applied to building than doing. She checked her watch. 36 hours remaining. She headed back to quarters, showered, and made a decision about how to use that time. Chat. The firing range was empty when Arya arrived at 700. She requested exclusive access for personal evaluation, was granted 2 hours. She set up at the 1,200-meter line with her rifle, alone except for range safety personnel monitoring from the tower. The target appeared. She fired. Hit, reset, fire. Hit, again, again, again. She ran through 50 rounds, making minute adjustments for wind and temperature, testing her capability without the pressure of mission stakes. Every shot was perfect. The mechanics were flawless. The environmental reading was automatic. The execution was as clean as it had been in the Euphrates Valley. She could do this. Could deploy, eliminate targets, serve operational needs. The capability was undeniable, but somewhere around round 30, she realized something. The shooting wasn't giving her the satisfaction it once had. The precision was still there. The skill was still sharp, but the emotional payoff, the sense of purpose and clarity Holloway had described, was muted. She was executing perfectly and feeling nothing. That realization settled over her like cold water. She cleared her rifle, packed her equipment, and left the range 15 minutes early. Back in her quarters, she pulled out her laptop and reviewed training assessments from the past year. Student evaluations, performance metrics, feedback from graduates now deployed worldwide. Lieutenant Chen's progression from doubt to confidence, Marcus's transformation from freezing under pressure to consistent execution, Torres's successful engagement in Syria using doctrine Arya had taught him, 37 other students showing measurable improvement in tactical decision-making, environmental reading, and precision execution. The data was comprehensive, undeniable. Her impact as an instructor was force multiplied across hundreds of operators who would deploy for decades. Her impact as an operator would be immediate, lethal, and limited to her own lifetime of deployment. Different scales, different time frames, different legacies. She thought about her father's compass. True north isn't on the compass, it's in the heart. Where was her heart pointing? She closed the laptop and sat in silence, letting the question breathe. The answer came quietly, certainly. She picked up her phone and composed a message to Richard Drummond. Read it twice, modified one sentence, read it again, then hit send before doubt could resurface. The response came within 5 minutes. Arya exhaled slowly, feeling something settle in her chest that had been churning for 36 hours. Decision made. Path chosen. Now she just had to live with the consequences. The final debrief took place that afternoon. Drummond appeared via video link, expression carefully neutral. Chen sat across from Arya, present but silent. Keller was also on the link, observing. Captain Vance, Drummond began, I've received your message. Before we finalize anything, I want to give you one more opportunity to reconsider. That won't be necessary, sir. The operational need is significant. The capability gap is real. You're declining to serve when your country needs you most. With respect, sir, I'm not declining to serve. I'm choosing how I serve. Arya's voice was calm, certain. My answer is final. I'm remaining in training command. Drummond's jaw tightened. You understand this opportunity won't be available again? I understand. I'm choosing to prioritize institutional impact over individual deployment. Institutional impact is theoretical. Operational deployment is real. Institutional impact is generational. Operational deployment is temporal. Arya met his eyes through the screen. Sir, I eliminated Khalid Yassin yesterday. That was important. But the doctrine I've built has enabled hundreds of operators to eliminate hundreds of threats. The mathematics favor teaching. The mathematics favor having our best asset actively hunting our worst enemies. The mathematics favor creating hundreds of highly capable assets instead of burning out one transcendent one. She paused. I've made my decision, Mr. Drummond. You can accept it or find another shooter, but I won't be pressured into sacrificing long-term strategic value for short-term tactical convenience. The statement hung in the digital air between them. Drummond stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You're certain? Absolutely. Then this conversation is concluded. Thank you for your service on the Yasin operation. You're released back to training command effective immediately. The link terminated. Chen smiled slightly. That was well handled. Was it? I just told a senior Pentagon official that his operational priorities are wrong. You told him that your assessment of how you can best serve differs from his. That's not insubordination. That's professional judgment. Chen stood. You made the right choice, Arya. Not the easy one, but the right one. Keller's link was still active. His voice came through. Captain Vance, for the record, I agree with your decision. The training program needs you more than operational deployment does. And for what it's worth, your father would be proud of that choice. Arya's throat tightened. Thank you, sir. Safe travels back to Bragg. And Captain, next time someone tries to pressure you into compromising your professional judgment, tell them to call me first. The link disconnected. Arya sat alone with Chen in the debriefing room, feeling the weight of decision settle into certainty. When do I fly back? She asked. Tomorrow morning. 0800 departure. Chen paused. Are you okay? I'm certain. That's better than okay. Certainty is a luxury most people never experience. Hold on to it. Chen moved toward the door, stopped. One more thing. Vega wanted me to tell you something. What? That you reminded him why he joined the Marines in the first place. Not to be the best operator, to build something that lasts longer than individual deployment. Chen smiled. He said you're going to change this profession. Already have, actually, but you'll change it more. No pressure. All the pressure. But you've proven you can handle it. Chen left. Arya remained in the empty room, surrounded by classified materials and mission records that would be sealed and forgotten. But the impact wouldn't be forgotten. Khalid Yassin was dead because she'd chosen to take the mission. Hundreds of operators were better because she'd chosen to teach them. Both things were true. Both things mattered. But only one was sustainable for the next decade of her life. She'd chosen sustainability over adrenaline, legacy over immediacy, foundation over execution, and for the first time in weeks she felt absolutely certain that choice was right. The flight back to Bragg the next morning was quiet, uneventful. Arya spent most of it reviewing training curricula, making notes on updates she wanted to implement based on lessons from the Yassin mission. Environmental reading protocols needed refinement. Urban shooting doctrine required expansion. Stress inoculation methods could be enhanced. Her mind was already back in teaching mode, processing operational experience into transferable knowledge. The plane touched down at 14:30. She collected her gear, cleared base security, and headed straight to the training facility. Her assistant instructor, Captain James Riley, looked up in surprise as she entered the office. "Ma'am, didn't expect you back until next week. Mission concluded early. Anything urgent?" "Lieutenant Chen has been running your advanced classes. Marcus passed his final qualification yesterday, 97% accuracy under chaos conditions. And you've got a stack of messages from former students deployed overseas." Arya felt something warm settle in her chest. "Good. Schedule a meeting with Chen tomorrow. I want to hear about Marcus's progression, and send me those messages." "Will do. Also, Colonel Wainwright called 3 times, said she needs to speak with you urgently." Arya sighed. Of course she did. Word of the Yassin mission would have reached JSOC by now. Wainwright would be making another recruitment push. "Tell her I'll call back Monday. Right now I need to prep next week's curriculum." Riley nodded, already pulling up schedules. Arya settled behind her desk, surrounded by familiar chaos. Training manuals, equipment catalogs, student evaluation forms. The mundane machinery of teaching. It felt right, not exciting, not dramatic, just right. Her phone buzzed. Text from Holloway. "Heard you declined Drummond's offer. Proud of you. Dinner tonight to celebrate?" She smiled, typed back 0700. "Sit. Your choice of location." "I'm buying. Deal. See you then." She set the phone down and turned to her computer, pulling up lesson plans that needed updating. Outside, students were running drills. The distant crack of rifles, the cadence of instructors calling corrections, the familiar rhythm of competence being built one repetition at a time. This was her battlefield now. Not as dramatic as the Euphrates Valley, not as immediate as trigger squeeze and ballistic solution, but just as important, maybe more so. Because every student she trained would deploy with doctrine she'd built, methods she'd refined, capabilities she'd transferred. They'd make shots she'd never know about, save lives she'd never meet, stop threats she'd never see. That was force multiplication. That was legacy. That was true north. And Arya Vance had finally found her way there. The compass had been right all along. The direction wasn't on the instrument, it was in the heart. And her heart had chosen to build rather than just execute. To teach rather than just perform, to create hundreds of precision shooters rather than being just one. The choice was made. The path was clear. And for the first time in years, she felt completely at peace with where she stood. The weeks that followed carried the rhythm of renewal. Arya threw herself back into teaching with intensity that surprised even her closest colleagues. She revised curricula based on lessons from the Yassin operation, incorporated urban shooting protocols into advanced training, and personally mentored students who showed exceptional promise but struggled with confidence. Lieutenant Chen was one of them. 3 weeks after Arya's return, Chen approached her during a break between range sessions. The young officer's bearing had changed, shoulders squared, voice steady, eyes clear. "Ma'am, I got my deployment orders, Syria, 6-month rotation with a Marine Expeditionary Unit providing precision overwatch." Arya felt pride surge through her chest. "Congratulations, you've earned it." "I'm terrified," Chen admitted, but the good kind of terrified. The kind that means I care about doing it right. That's exactly the right kind. Arya pulled out a small notebook from her chest rig, wrote something, tore out the page. My father gave me this before my first deployment. I'm passing it to you. Chen read the handwritten note. Fear is data. Use it to sharpen your focus, not dull your edge. Trust your training. Trust yourself. Come home safe. Her eyes glistened. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me. Just execute. And when you come back, teach the next generation what you learned. Arya paused. That's how this works. We build each other up, one operator at a time. Chen nodded, carefully folding the note and tucking it into her own gear. Arya watched her walk back to the range, remembering her own first deployment. The fear, the doubt, the weight of proving herself in spaces designed to exclude her. But Chen wouldn't face the same resistance. The ground had shifted. Doors Arya had forced open were now held open by institutional change she'd helped create. That was progress. Slow. Unglamorous. Real. Basmam. The call from Colonel Wainwright came on a Tuesday morning, exactly as Arya had predicted. Captain Vance, I understand you declined Richard Drummond's operational assignment. Yes, ma'am. Can I ask why? Arya set down her coffee, choosing words carefully. Because I assess that my highest value contribution is institutional rather than individual. The training program serves strategic interests better than my operational deployment would. Silence on the line. Then, that's remarkably mature judgment for someone who just executed a perfect mission. The mission was successful because of preparation, ma'am. Same preparation I'm now transferring to hundreds of students who will deploy worldwide. The math favors teaching. The math also favors having you in my unit. The offer I made 6 months ago still stands. Mixed gender direct action team. You'd be breaking new ground, opening doors. With respect, Colonel, I'm not interested in being symbolic. I'm interested in being effective. And I'm most effective building shooters, not being one. Wainwright laughed. Genuine, surprised. You're one of the few people I've met who actually means that. Most operators say they want to teach, but they're chasing glory in a different uniform. Glory is temporary. Doctrine is permanent. Fair point. Wainwright's tone shifted. All right, Captain, you've made your position clear, but I want you to know something. The doors you've forced open, the assumptions you've shattered, that matters beyond any individual mission. You've changed what's possible for women in this community. Don't underestimate that impact. I don't, ma'am, but I also won't let it define me. I'm a sniper who happens to be a woman, not a woman who happens to be a sniper. The distinction matters. It does. And the fact that you understand that distinction is exactly why you're so effective. Wainwright paused. Keep doing what you're doing, Captain. The community needs it. The call ended. Arya sat in her office, staring at the phone, processing the conversation. She'd turned down 2 major opportunities in the span of a month. Career-accelerating positions that most officers would kill for. And she felt absolutely no regret. That clarity was worth more than any promotion. The breakthrough with Marcus came during a late-night training session 4 weeks after Arya's return. He'd been struggling with confidence again, old patterns resurfacing under pressure. Arya had kept him after hours to run additional drills, one-on-one coaching to address the mental barriers. They were on the range, 1,200 meters, simulated chaos conditions. Marcus had missed 3 consecutive shots, not by much, but enough to trigger his self-doubt spiral. I can't do this, he said, frustration bleeding into his voice. I get close, but I can't finish. Maybe my commander was right. Maybe I'm not cut out for advanced work. Arya walked over, crouched beside him. Marcus, look at me. He did, reluctantly. You're not failing because you lack capability. You're failing because you're fighting yourself instead of fighting the problem. Your mechanics are solid. Your environmental reading is excellent. But the second you start questioning whether you belong here, your brain diverts processing power from shooting to self-assessment. That's bandwidth you need for execution. So how do I stop questioning? You don't. You just stop letting the questions matter more than the mission. She gestured to his rifle. This weapon doesn't care about your doubts. It performs based on how you employ it. You give it good inputs, proper hold, correct wind call, steady trigger squeeze, and it delivers good outputs. The self-doubt is noise. Stop amplifying it. Easier said than done. Everything worth doing is. Arya stood. Run it again. But this time, I want you to externalize the doubt, out loud. Say every negative thought before you shoot. Marcus looked confused. What? Seriously, I want to hear every doubt, every fear, every criticism you're directing at yourself. Externalize it so it's not bouncing around in your head, taking up space. He positioned behind the rifle, clearly uncomfortable. This is weird. Do it anyway. Marcus settled into position, took a breath. I'm gonna miss. I always miss when it matters. My commander thinks I'm weak. Maybe I am weak. Maybe I don't belong. Good. Keep going. Set up the shot. I can't make this shot. It's too hard. I'm not good enough. Wind call. 8 miles per hour northeast, but I'll probably read it wrong. Distance. 1,200 meters. Elevation compensated. But I'll screw up the trigger squeeze like always. Fire when ready. Marcus continued muttering doubts while setting up the shot, adjusting position, reading environment, preparing to execute. Then he went quiet. Exhaled. Squeezed the trigger. Through her spotting scope, Arya watched the impact. Center mass. Perfect hit. Marcus stared through his scope, stunned. What just happened? He whispered. You externalized the noise so it couldn't interfere with the signal. Your doubt was loud and external instead of quiet and internal. That freed up mental bandwidth for actual shooting. Arya smiled. Your mechanics were always solid. You just needed to get out of your own way. Marcus sat back, processing. That actually worked. It worked because you're capable. You've always been capable. The only thing holding you back was you. She pulled him to his feet. Run it 9 more times. Keep externalizing. Let's make this automatic. He ran it 9 more times, hit 7 out of 9. By the end of the session, his confidence had transformed from fragile hope into solid certainty. Thank you, ma'am, he said as they packed equipment. I thought I was broken. Turns out I just needed different tools. You were never broken, just fighting the wrong battle. Arya shouldered her rifle case. Now go deploy that capability. And when you come back, teach someone else how to get out of their own way. Yes, ma'am. She watched him walk off the range, shoulders straight, doubt replaced by purpose. That was the work. Not dramatic, not glamorous. Just one operator at a time, finding their way through barriers internal and external. Force multiplication through patient, relentless coaching. The recognition came from an unexpected source 6 weeks after the Yasin mission. Arya was conducting a field exercise when her assistant interrupted. Ma'am, you've got a visitor. Says it's important. She handed off supervision and headed to the main office, expecting another recruitment attempt or administrative issue. Gunnery Sergeant Vega stood waiting, Marine Corps SWAT, dress uniform crisp, ribbons gleaming. Arya stopped short. Gunny, didn't expect to see you here. Flew in this morning, wanted to deliver something personally. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opened it. Inside was a challenge coin, custom minted, detailed engraving on both sides. One side showed a sniper scope reticle with 1,247 meters beneath it. The other side had a simple inscription. Precision builds legacy. Thank you for showing us how. Below that, signatures from every member of the Yasin operation team. Arya's throat tightened. Gunny, this is long overdue. The team wanted you to know that mission changed how we think about precision warfare. Not just the shot, the whole approach. Your doctrine is already being integrated into Marine Scout sniper training. Vega smiled. You turned down operational duty to teach. We wanted you to know the teaching is working, rippling out, making real impact. She turned the coin over in her hands, feeling the weight of recognition earned rather than granted. Thank you. This means more than you know. There's more. Vega pulled out an official-looking envelope. Colonel Chen recommended you for the Bronze Star with Valor for the Yasin operation. It was approved yesterday. Ceremony is scheduled for next month at Quantico. The team will be there. Arya stared at the envelope. Another medal, another recognition, another symbol of capability proven through execution. I don't need this, she said quietly. I know, that's exactly why you deserve it. Vega's expression was serious. Ma'am, you taught me something important, that the best operators know when to step back. That legacy isn't about how long you fight. It's about what you build that lasts after you're done fighting. You're building something that'll outlast all of us. This medal just acknowledges what everyone already knows. You're not just a great shooter, you're a great leader. He saluted, crisp and formal. Arya returned it, emotion pressing against her chest. Vega left. She stood alone in the office, holding a challenge coin and an envelope that represented paths not taken and choices made. The Bronze Star was for the Yasin mission, for operational excellence, for being the best at executing violence with precision. But the challenge coin was for teaching, for doctrine, for building the next generation. One recognized what she could do, the other recognized what she was doing. She knew which one mattered more. The confrontation with Richard Drummond came 3 months after the Yasin mission during a high-level conference at the Pentagon. Arya had been invited to present on advanced precision warfare doctrine, her training methodology, recent innovations, measurable impact on operational effectiveness across multiple theaters. The presentation went well. Senior officers asked technical questions. Analysts requested detailed data. The response was uniformly positive, except from one person. Richard Drummond sat in the back, arms crossed, expression carefully neutral. After the presentation, as people filed out, he approached. Captain Vance, impressive presentation. Thank you, sir. The training metrics are compelling. Improved accuracy scores, better environmental reading, faster target acquisition. He paused. But metrics aren't missions. PowerPoint slides don't stop attacks. Arya recognized the challenge. No, sir. But operators I've trained have stopped 17 confirmed attacks in the last 6 months using doctrine I developed. Those are missions, real ones. 17 attacks stopped by people you taught. 1 attack stopped by you personally. The math still favors you operating instead of teaching. The math favors sustainable impact over individual glory, sir. Drummond's expression hardened. Is that what you think I'm about? Glory? I think you're about operational efficiency measured in immediate tactical outcomes, which is valuable, but it's not the only measure of value. Arya met his eyes steadily. Sir, I eliminated Khalid Yasin. That was important, but the doctrine I've built has enabled hundreds of operators to eliminate hundreds of threats. The multiplier effect is undeniable. Until you're needed for a mission only you can execute. Then what? Then someone else steps up. Because I've been building someone else's. That's the point of teaching. She paused. Sir, with respect, you're measuring me against a standard that prioritizes individual capability over institutional development. That standard made sense when precision shooting was rare, but it's not rare anymore. I've made sure of that. Drummond stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You really believe that? I know that. There's a difference. Fair enough. He pulled out his phone, showed her an intelligence brief. North Africa. High-value target. Same difficulty profile as Yasin. My analysts say you're the only shooter who can make it consistently. Arya glanced at the brief. Recognized the operational parameters. Knew immediately she could make the shot. Also knew she wouldn't. Find another shooter, sir. Train them to my standard. Give them the resources and preparation time I had. They'll make it. And if they don't? If the target escapes and people die, then you learn from the failure, adjust the approach, and try again. Same as any mission. But you don't come back to me asking for exceptions to the choice I've already made. Even if that choice costs lives? Even then. Because the alternative, constantly pulling me out of teaching for just one more mission, costs more lives long-term through degraded institutional capability. Arya's voice remained calm, absolute. Sir, I respect your position, but you need to respect mine. I'm not operational anymore. I'm institutional. That's where my value lies now. Drummond studied her carefully. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. You know what, Captain? I disagree with your choice. I think you're wasting talent, but I respect the conviction behind it. He extended his hand. Good luck with your training program. She shook it. Thank you, sir. He walked away. Arya stood in the Pentagon corridor surrounded by power brokers and decision-makers who measured success in stars and selections. She measured it differently now, in students deployed, in doctrine adopted, in operators trained to her standard who'd go on to train others. That was success, quieter than operational glory, more sustainable than individual achievement, more important than any medal. But the ceremony at Quantico brought unexpected closure. The Bronze Star presentation was formal, professional, attended by senior Marine Corps leadership and the full Yasin operation team. Arya stood at attention while her citation was read aloud, details of the mission, the shot, the impact. When the medal was pinned to her uniform, the room erupted in applause. She accepted it with the grace expected of officers, shook hands with generals, posed for official photographs. But the moment that mattered came afterward, during the informal reception. Colonel Sarah Chen approached, champagne glass in hand. "How does it feel?" Validating. Also slightly absurd. Arya gestured at the medal. "I made one shot. My students make hundreds. But yours was transcendent. Theirs are merely excellent." Chen smiled. "That's why this matters. It acknowledges that sometimes individual excellence creates templates others can follow. You didn't just make a difficult shot. You proved it was possible. That changes what people attempt. I'd rather be known for teaching than shooting. You're known for both. Accept it." Chen raised her glass. "To Captain Arya Vance, sniper, instructor, legend who refuses to act like one." They drank. Across the room, Vega was telling war stories to young Marines who listened with rapt attention. Hayes and Diaz were comparing notes with Army snipers about methodology refinements. Kowalski was arguing good-naturedly with a Navy SEAL about optimal hide positioning. The community doing what it did best, learning from each other, building on shared experience, elevating collective capability. Arya watched it all with quiet satisfaction. This was her legacy. Not individual medals or operational accolades, but a community that valued precision, embraced innovation, and understood that teaching excellence mattered as much as executing it. Lieutenant General Keller approached, 2 stars gleaming. "Captain Vance?" She straightened. "Sir, walk with me." They moved to a quiet corner of the reception hall, away from the crowd. "I wanted to tell you something," Keller said. 5 years ago, after Korash Province, I fought hard to make sure your performance was recognized as tactical brilliance rather than political symbolism. I did that because you deserved it, but also because I knew you'd face resistance your entire career, people questioning your presence, your capability, your right to be in these spaces. I'm aware, sir. I'm sure you are. What you might not be aware of is how much that resistance has diminished. Not disappeared, but diminished significantly. He gestured to the room. You see those young officers? Marine lieutenants, Army captains, Navy ensigns? Half of them are women. 5 years ago, there were 2. That's progress. Real, measurable progress. And it happened because people like you forced the door open and held it there long enough for others to walk through. Arya felt emotion press against her throat. Sir, I just did my job. No. You did more than your job. You changed the institution. Keller's expression was serious. Captain, I'm retiring in 6 months, 40 years of service. In that time, I've seen a lot of changes. Most of them superficial. Yours isn't. You fundamentally reshaped how we develop precision shooters and how we think about who can do this work. That's generational impact. Don't minimize it. I won't, sir. Good. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. This is unofficial, my personal recommendation for your promotion to major. It'll be processed through normal channels, but I wanted you to know it's coming. You've earned it 3 times over. She accepted the envelope, hand steady. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Captain, for service, for excellence, for refusing to quit when it would have been easier. He saluted. She returned it, crisp and formal. Keller walked away, leaving her with a medal on her chest, a promotion recommendation in her hands, and the weight of legacy settling into certainty. The final conversation happened on a Montana mountainside 6 months later. Arya had taken leave, 2 weeks, first real break in 3 years, and driven home to the backcountry where her father had taught her to shoot. She hiked to his grave on the 2nd day, Small cemetery, remote location, surrounded by the kind of silence that made people uncomfortable, but she found peaceful. She sat on the cold ground beside the headstone, rifle case beside her, and talked to him the way she had when he was alive. Direct, honest, no pretense. I turned down operational assignments, twice, stayed in teaching instead. I think you'd approve, but I'm not certain. You always pushed me to be the best. Sometimes I wonder if staying behind means I'm not pushing hard enough. Wind whispered through pine trees. A hawk circled overhead. But I've trained 372 students in the last 5 years. They've deployed to 17 countries, made thousands of shots I'll never know about, saved lives I'll never meet. That's force multiplication. That's what you taught me mattered more than individual glory. She pulled out his compass, held it in her hands. True north isn't on the compass. It's in the heart. I finally understand what you meant. The direction isn't external. It's internal. And my heart says teaching matters more than executing. Building matters more than being. Legacy matters more than glory. The hawk descended, landed in a nearby tree, watched her with predator's eyes. I miss you, she said quietly. Every day. But I'm carrying forward what you taught me. Not just shooting, the whole philosophy, that competence is built through preparation, that fear is data, that the mission matters more than ego, that sometimes the best thing you can do is step back and build the next generation. She stood, brushed dirt from her pants. I made you proud, Dad. I know I did, because I'm not chasing approval anymore. I'm just doing the work, same as you taught me. She saluted the headstone, formal, precise, filled with love and respect. Then she shouldered her rifle case and hiked back down the mountain, leaving footprints in snow that would melt by morning, but knowing the foundation she'd built would last decades. The years that followed carried the rhythm of impact measured in generations rather than missions. Arya was promoted to major, then lieutenant colonel. Her training program expanded from sniper-specific to comprehensive precision warfare doctrine adopted across all service branches. Lieutenant Chen returned from Syria with a Bronze Star of her own, immediately requested assignment as Arya's assistant instructor. Together they built curricula that reshaped how precision shooters were developed worldwide. Marcus became one of the top snipers in his regiment, eventually returning to teach at the same facility where he'd once struggled with confidence. He used Arya's externalization technique with every student who fought self-doubt. Torres, the Marine who'd used her doctrine in Syria, became a legend in his own right, eventually writing a field manual on tactical decision-making under pressure that cited Arya's methodology throughout. The ripple effects were impossible to track completely, but they were real, measurable, permanent. Arya stopped counting medals and started counting students who came back from deployment to say her teaching had saved their lives. That was the metric that mattered. Commander Holloway retired as promised, spent his remaining years consulting on special operations doctrine, always citing Arya's work as the gold standard for training innovation. Colonel Wainwright's mixed gender unit eventually stood up, succeeded beyond expectations, opened doors Arya had helped prepare. Wainwright sent her a personal note. You didn't join us, but you made us possible. Thank you. Even Richard Drummond came around. 3 years after their Pentagon confrontation, he attended one of Arya's doctrine presentations, and afterward admitted, I was wrong. You've created more operational value through teaching than you ever could have through individual deployment. I should have recognized that sooner. The recognition was satisfying, but not necessary. Arya had stopped needing external validation years ago. She measured success differently now, by competence transferred, operators developed, doctrine refined, doors held open for the next generation, by the quiet knowledge that she'd changed what was possible, not through one perfect shot, through thousands of imperfect lessons that accumulated into institutional transformation. 10 years after Korash Province, Arya stood before a new class of sniper candidates at Fort Bragg. She was 40 years old, lieutenant colonel rank insignia gleaming, rows of ribbons on her chest representing service spanning continents and decades. But the students didn't see the medals. They saw someone who'd walked the path they were starting and survived to teach it. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Arya Vance, she began. Most of you have heard stories about Korash Province, about a mission in the Euphrates Valley, about shots made under impossible conditions. Those stories are inflated, simplified, turned into legend. She paused, making eye contact with each student. The truth is simpler. I prepared obsessively. I trusted my training. I executed fundamentals under pressure. That's not legend. That's discipline. And discipline is something every single one of you can develop. A hand went up. Young private, couldn't be more than 20. Ma'am, how do we know if we're good enough? Arya smiled. She'd been asked that question 1,000 times. The answer never changed. You stop asking whether you're good enough and start asking whether you're prepared enough. Capability isn't mystical, it's mechanical. You build it through repetition, refinement, and relentless attention to fundamentals. Some of you will develop faster than others. Some will struggle. All of you will face doubt. The question isn't whether doubt exists, it's whether you let it control you. She clicked to her first slide. Ballistic data, environmental variables, the mathematics of precision. Over the next 12 weeks, I'm going to teach you everything I know about making shots other people think are impossible. But more importantly, I'm going to teach you how to teach others. Because this isn't about making you the best sniper alive. It's about making you part of a community that elevates everyone's capability. The class settled in, notebooks open, minds hungry. Arya looked at them and saw herself 15 years ago, uncertain, hungry, desperate to prove she belonged in spaces designed to exclude her. But these students wouldn't face the same resistance. The ground had shifted. The doors she'd forced open were now institutional policy. That was progress. Slow, unglamorous, real. Let's begin, she said, and she taught them everything that mattered. The final moment came on an ordinary Tuesday, 5 years after that class. Arya was in her office reviewing training assessments when her assistant knocked. Ma'am, there's a package for you. Personal delivery. She accepted it. Small box, no return address, hand-addressed in careful script. Inside was a challenge coin. One side showed a compass rose. The other had an inscription. True North found. Thank you for showing the way. Your students, 2019 to 2034. Below that, space for signatures. Hundreds of them. Every student she'd taught over 15 years, each one adding their name to the collective gratitude. Arya held the coin in her hands, feeling the weight of legacy earned through patient, relentless work. She thought about her father, about Korash Province, about choices made and paths not taken, about the knowledge that she'd done exactly what she was meant to do. Not chase glory, build competence, not prove herself repeatedly, transform the institution that had doubted her, not be the best sniper alive, create hundreds of excellent snipers who'd outlast her career and carry forward her methods. That was true north, not on a compass, not in external validation, but in the quiet certainty that her work mattered, would continue mattering, and had changed what was possible for everyone who came after. She set the coin on her desk beside her father's compass, two symbols of direction found through different means but leading to the same place. Then she returned to work, because there were always more students to teach, more doors to hold open, more excellence to build, one operator at a time, one shot at a time, one generation at a time. The world underestimated Arya Vance once. She responded with precision that turned doubt into silence. Then she did something more important. She taught others to do the same. And in teaching, she discovered something more powerful than any individual achievement, that legacy isn't what you accomplish alone, but what becomes possible because you were there. When the world tells you that you don't belong, don't waste energy fighting the narrative. Just perform so undeniably that doubt becomes irrelevant. Then turn around and build the ladder for everyone climbing after you. That's how you change everything.